First thing is, do we have a need for a non-public session?
No, not start.
Not starting. Okay, so we're going to start with the RTI presentation.
Ooh, jeepers, right off the bat.
Yep.
As if I need this, right?
So just to let people know, Mr. Wells had something come up, so he'll be late today at work. He said he should be here around 7 or 7:15.
So, all right, we're going to start with the RTI presentation. Thanks to all of you who are here on the RTI Leadership Committee. We have been asked to share some information regarding our RTI implementation. We are in the second year of our full implementation, K-8. We have an RTI Leadership Committee that has done a lot of work over the last 2 years. We've done a lot to collect data within our system and use that data to continually improve and modify where it's needed so that the delivery of supports and delivery of services is as effective as it can be. So some of you might have been aware that we had a presentation earlier in the fall, and because we have new board members and new public folks that might be interested, we have included some of that presentation in this one, and we have added a lot more information. So if some of the slides seem familiar to you, they might be, but for the benefit of those who had not seen the first presentation, we've included what's needed to get people up to speed on the RTI process from the beginning and through to where we are now. So the goals for tonight's presentation include the following: what RTI is and what it is not, which is pretty important for folks because there are a lot of assumptions about what an RTI program means and what the purpose is. So we're going to hopefully dispel some of the rumors that are inaccurate and give you a clear picture on what it is and what it means for the students of Northwood School. Why use an RTI model and who benefits? We're going to talk about what the benefits are for students, how the benefits are derived from students, and what the interactions between staff and students are that lead to those benefits. What does RTI look like in a classroom? This is something that a lot of people have questions about, and it is probably an area that we've looked at readily and have made significant modifications in and are still developing. The process that we use to determine what RTI looks like. In different classrooms, it does look different. In different areas for different grades, it does look different. So in a response to instruction model, we do have to vary what we do according to the needs of the students that are present in any particular group. So that's why you may see there is variation from classroom to classroom or from grade to grade on how these supports are delivered. And also Northwood's progress with RTI. We have come a long way since last fall. We have this fully implemented, all K-8, and we have developed a master schedule around which RTI delivery is expected and made available to students. So we've done a lot in the last 2 years, quite a bit in the last 2 years, to be able to offer the supports that are needed, to be able to target the supports based on data that we collect, and make sure that the supports are effective to be able to assist students in moving forward academically. The majority of our supports right now have been targeted in the area of literacy. We certainly can expand this when the time comes for us to do so in math. It's limited right now in math, but the majority of it is in literacy because that's where the biggest need is with our student population. So I would like to thank and recognize the RTI Leadership Committee. This team has been working diligently. We've been working very hard these last 2 years, and I want to recognize the folks on the committee. Donna Turco is our reading specialist. She has been hugely significant in the way we've been able to move forward as the reading specialist because this is so directly connected to her work. Sharon Plourde representing special ed. Carol Summers as an academic tutor who works offering reading interventions. Ellen Gibson representing second grade. Lauren Dow, third grade. Lee Cronin is representing that 5-6 grade span. Megan Mantell is our 8th grade representative. So we do have representation all throughout K through 8th grade. Erin Duffy, again, a special ed representative in our lower grades. Miss Rush, we expanded the leadership team to include a related arts teacher, which has been really important for us this year with the work that we've done and a much needed addition to the team. Lisa Labella, representing the 538 guidance, Ms. Cremoni, the assistant principal, myself, and our literacy consultant, Marianne Nice, who has been spearheading the entire effort based on her expertise in the area. And we're going to give you a lot of information today. This is going to be posted on our website, so if anybody has any questions or wants to have it as a referral item later on, it will be posted on our website, and we certainly welcome any feedback that folks want to give us during or after the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Cronin.
Okay, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Lee Cronin. I teach 5th grade. I've been here for many, many years, and exciting to come to you with RTI and what it is now at the end of the year 2016. What it is, a database decision making through monitoring the progress of all students in reading and mathematics. It's providing opportunities for students to close achievement gaps, and it provides opportunities to reflect and improve instructional practice for all students. Again, it's not limited to a certain amount. It's for all classroom teachers and all students within our classes. What it's not, again, what Mrs. Daypre had said is to kind of eliminate any thoughts of what it might be or isn't. It's not a special ed thing. It's not an intervention program. It's not a curriculum. It's not a Common Core initiative. It does and is designed to close achievement gaps rather than widen or stabilize them. It recognizes the importance of early identification and prevention versus a wait to fail model. And it allows for all students to receive academic support in reading and math based on their needs. This is a snapshot from what the state of New Hampshire has designed, indicating what RTI, the components of it, the database decision with the progress monitoring that happens, the multi-level prevention system, the screening, again from the state. The 3 different tiers that you may have heard about, tier 1 being all students instruction in the classroom. So that's your students in the classroom. Tier 2 is a smaller percentage that are needing a targeted intervention. And then tier 3, which would be the really smallest percentage of students needing an intense intervention. For those of you that have seen this presentation with RTI and different components, this is a slide that many of us on the committee feel very strongly about, because on the left, it's random acts of improvement. Prior to the system that we have in place, people were working incredibly hard. Yeah, we were kind of doing our own and going in our own directions. Well, now it's, as the slide says, an aligned act. We're all working together in a system and making that much more effective for our students. Yeah, and now?
I think we're turning it over to Sharon.
To Sharon. Okay. Left hand, right hand.
I know. Okay, and what do we push to?
This one.
Okay, great. Oh, geez, Louise.
Want me to forward it? I'll forward
That'd
it.
be great.
Yeah, let me do that for you.
Thank you. All right, and I'm Sharon Plord, for anyone who may not know me, the special educator K1. So on this slide, this shows that we have a moving target. So this is the progression that we like to see your typical student would follow. Now, just to give you an idea with some numbers, because I know you look at that and that doesn't mean a whole lot to you. So for grade 1, for them to achieve like 50 percentile for the grade, they have to do letter naming, where they're shown a sheet of letters and they have to just name them. So in September, they would have to do 47 letters in 1 minute to reach the 50 percentile. 57 in January, and then in May, they'd have to do 63. Now, they also have to do oral reading, which they're giving story passages. There's 3 passages, and they have to average the 3 scores. So in September, they're only expected to read 13 words a minute. January, it jumps to 36 words a minute, and then by May, it's 67 words per minute. So as you can see, it doesn't mean, you know, a lot of times I know we talk about the kids, you know, following the projection, making gains. It's not that the numbers stay the same and they're just following that path. Those numbers increase, you know, as we move along in the year. So that the dotted line is the average progression that we'd expect our students to see, or your typical achievement of your typical students. This red line is for where our lower performers, they start below, they're still making gains, but they're still not closing the gap between the, you know, where there are kids that are performing in an average level, which this is called the Matthew effect, which you might be familiar with, is the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So, you know, the kids that already have the skills, that have the exposure, they're still making growth and they're still making gains, where our kids are too, the lower kids are too, but not at the same speed as the other kids because they just don't have the background knowledge and the exposure. Yeah, we can keep going. So, the green line is your average growth for your typical student, or your little wedge there. And there's your targets that we talked about, and that's, as you can see, it follows, and they're making their gains. Now this is your below average performer, and as you can see, again, they're making growth too, but they're still below where your average performer is, and then that's where you get your achievement gap, is between where they are and then where your typical student is. So what happens is, for our kiddos that really need the Tier 2 and Tier 3 RTI, not only do they have to make up their annual growth, you know, they have their annual growth, but they also have to, you know, close that achievement gap. So they have, it's almost like they have to do twice as much to catch up to their peers. And so it's not only just RTI, it's the classroom teacher, it's, you know, everything extra, an extra reading group, an extra time, some, you know, a small group. It takes a lot of people to close that gap for these kids, to make up that catch-up growth. So how does it work? So if we're in Mrs. Clark's class and we use our universal screener, which ours happens to be AimsWeb, what happens is we have some kids that flag right away. They don't know their letters, they don't know their sounds, things like that. So those are your red dots. Then right away we know these kids need to be in RTI, and some of them we even know right away not only need Tier 2 but need Tier 3. Your yellow kids are your watch kids. They're not where we want them, but you know what, with a little bit of extra they could get caught up. They're also flagged when we use the universal screener, and then the teacher does the monitoring in the classroom and just keeps watching, and as soon as we see if it starts to sink a little bit, then again, you know, they can be put into another tier just to kind of boost them and catch them back up. Your green dots are your average students that are, you know, performing just fine, what they did with the screener, and you know, with what the teacher says, how they're performing in the classroom. So again, you have your struggling kids right here. They're in their RTI groups. They're with an intervention teacher. Their progress monitored bi-weekly. So we meet and have data meetings so we know what's going on with them. And then your yellow kids are your watch kids. The teachers progress monitoring, and again, we still bring that up when we have our data meetings. We talk about it, and about every 6 weeks, then we look at our groups again and say, okay, who, you know, can we shift them? Does someone need to be added to a group, or someone graduated? So that's what this slide talks about, is that 2 times a month we review the progress. The intervention runs for 6-week cycles, and again, who needs it, who doesn't. And the thing is, it's been working really nicely and is very fluid, and kids can just move. We've had kids, it just takes 6 weeks, and that was just enough to get them caught right up. And then you have other kids that might have been a watch kid, and we're like, you know, they just start teetering a little bit and go sliding a little bit. We're able to throw them into an intervention again and hopefully boost what they're able to do. Sorry. So what kind of data do we use? So your general outcome measure is also called your universal screener. That is AimsWeb, which we are using. So we have a benchmark, which is 3 times a year, and then we have our progress monitoring measures, which are every 2 weeks. You also have your school-wide assessments, You have intervention tests, you have school tests, you have NEWA, you have informal tests that either an interventionist might give or the teacher might give. And again, in the classroom, you have weekly tests, unit tests, things like that. So all of this is taken into consideration when we're deciding on what type of intervention that a student needs. Okay, who's
Great.
next?
Done. Yeah, you want to do it?
Donna Turco, I'm the reading specialist. Oh, you want to go back one?
Sorry.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the interventions. We've worked really hard this year to make sure that kids that do receive interventions have targeted instruction to try to help close that achievement gap. So through the Universal Screener, through data meetings and what's going on in their classrooms, we've been able to target where their areas of weakness are and teach just to that to try to boost them up. So intensive support, this is the perfect equation for how to close that achievement gap with targeted instruction plus intensity. So again, identifying the risk and where the deficits are, and then providing direct and targeted small group instruction. And then the intensity has to deal with the time. So it goes back to what Sharon was talking about adding in extra time, making sure that the students are getting everything that they can get in their classrooms and then above and beyond in intervention groups. The next few slides are sample charts that we use off of Ames Web for data. So we know you can't read what this is, so it's just kind of an example to see what we get to look at. This one is whole school, every single grade level. So on the very bottom, like the first 3 rows are grade 1. We do have kindergarten too, but they don't do the oral read, so they're not in this one. And then it goes up. So this is showing us the progression of the whole grade level from the fall benchmark to the winter benchmark to the spring benchmark. So we're this week in the process of doing our spring benchmark. That's the bags under my eyes. So that's why those that third slot is empty right now. This is a sample graph of a kindergartner. It's a non-special ed student, but it's just a C. So just a regular ed student that was having a hard time. I think it's letter name, maybe?
Letter sound.
Letter sound. It shows a progression. So the green dots are the benchmark. So it shows where they were in the winter, and then that one is in the spring. The little black dots in the middle are where they're progress monitored every 2 weeks. So you can see that it's going up and down. You question, well, what happened over there? Again, it's the moving target is a piece of it, but it's also the progression of kind of how kids are growing, and it's normal for them to go up and down. And that's why we kind of keep track every 2 weeks so that we can make sure that they're staying on track. And then this was a 6th grade student for oral reading fluency, and again, it just shows a progression. The biggest thing to pay attention to is where the green dots are and just the final outcome, and then on the very end, the rectangle bar shows us that they're meeting their goal. Does RTI have a benefit for on-level students and above? And the question to this is yes. We do get to target all students in the building. It's not just special ed students, our regular ed students. We have put a few things in place for kids that needed to do work above and beyond, but it also allows for differentiation with the groups, and so teachers can focus on that. This graph or chart is from last year's kindergarten data, so most of you remember seeing this. You probably don't want to focus on what just got circled, but more just on the percentages. So in fall, for the letter name, there were 70% of the students were at benchmark. Winter, it was 63%, and then in spring, it was 37%. So again, it's going down. It's not because the students aren't still learning. It's because the target is moving up. What happened with this information for us was we knew we needed to do something. So we boosted the phonics instruction, and we were able to put some things into place so that this year's data looks a little better. So now you can compare, if you just go back to those, the letter ID was at 60% fall of this year, and then winter was 87%. And we actually did just finish their spring, and they're at 72%. Which, you know, again, it looks like it might be down from there, but when you compare the 72% compared to last year's, what was it, 37%, it kind of shows us that our instruction and our work and changes that we've made have been successful. I'm good. So what role does curriculum play? So this again is the tier chart. So too many students in an intervention is a flag that maybe the core instruction isn't that strong, and we need to boost that up. You can't close the gap if you have all of the kids in interventions all the time. They need to have a strong core program and strong instruction in their classrooms so that that's strong, and then hopefully less students would need interventions. Is there something else I missed? And I guess, you know, back to the other one, I think with the new programs coming in next year, that will just boost all that Tier 1 instruction as well. This is one.
So I'm Lauren Dow, third grade teacher. So what does RTI look like in grades 1 through 4? So during the RTI time, we take data and we drive our decisions based on that data, and we form groups. So the groups that we put them into are a slightly at-risk group, an on-level group, and an above-level group, which has been talked about this evening. And then they receive all of those interventions through the classroom teachers, the special ed department, and really anyone else in the building that can help during that time. And these students are grouped by their ability and placed in focus groups. And they're not just focused on reading comprehension like it suggests in the slide. We also do it based on decoding, phonics. So the groups can vary depending on what each individual student needs. And then under the new ESSA Act, there's limitations with the traditional one-day professional development opportunities. So that just means that when teachers go to a one-day workshop, we come back with such a plethora of information. It's then we get so much that we really like. We never have the opportunity to really put it into practice and put it into play after that one day. So what we've done here, there have been a couple of grades that have trialed an in-house professional development day. One of them being 4th grade, Related Arts team, and my team. And I can speak to that. The pros of it is that we work well with all these limited resources that we do have. So we can come back with resources this plethora of resources, take some of them and really look at them in depth so that we can then practice and utilize just those few right away. It provides the continuous collaboration between team members where we can then go back and really talk about what we've learned and how we're going to put it into practice. And not only that, it also helps to vertically align it so then we can talk to 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and then 4th grade as well. And how those all come together to work on our best practices to drive our instruction. And the cons about that is sub-coverage. When we do need a 3-hour or half-day professional time, it's hard to get sub-coverage for that. But it was really nice for 3rd grade to get together and make that work because you get you get a lot of work done in that 3-hour period knowing that you have all these resources and now you can finally put it all together. And then just the other being recognized and being respected for all the work that is being done in this building. Having that time, you are able to finally say, you know, here's what we've done, and kind of come to a packet of information of how it's going to better our students at our school. So.
In grade 5 with RTI, couple things that we were hoping to, as a 5th grade team, since the schedule allowed for the related arts teachers to open up and be able to meet with a group of students. Again, with RTI, the instruction, we had to look at first who goes. And knowing that this would be for our beyond students, we had looked at data and identified the ones below and those that were receiving instruction already. Through classroom performance, work habits, report cards, first, second, third quarter report cards, and then the NEWAR assessment, which was taken in the fall, were all different components that we looked at to decide who these children would be that would be leaving our classroom to get some instruction that would be beyond core curriculum. We did work as the other RTI models of 6-week instruction. So the 5th grade teachers got together first at the data meeting, so with Mrs. Rush being the related arts spokesperson, Mrs. Fredette, myself, Mary Ann, and we went through the children and looked at the criteria, and we made our decisions, and it was a group of 10 students. The first cycle was with Mrs. Moore, the media specialist, and Miss Rush with drama, and together these 10 students were able to receive instruction beyond the regular classroom, but also to the expertise of the related arts teachers instructing them. They met twice a week, once with Mrs. Moore, once with Mrs. Rush, and through that 6-week cycle, both 5th grade teachers were able to meet with and keep up to date with what was taking place outside of our classroom, as we do at our data meetings with the other interventionists. The 6-week program came, it ended up, they had done a skit with Mrs. Rush declaring independence. It was absolutely awesome. The kids felt so proud and had so much to share. It was in front of all 5th grade students, it being in the social studies curriculum. Everyone benefited from the skits. They were informative, fun. The kids had a blast, but then that cycle ended and a new one has begun. Mr. O and Mr. White are now the related arts teachers and being phys ed and art. Their focus now is with the Westwood movement, again moving with social studies and the curriculum. So it's been a very, very positive experience, I would say, for all staff and students.
Great. I think we've met before. Mary Ann Nice. I'm a consultant here. Our 8th grade representative is not here this evening, so I'll take you through 7th and 8th grade. It does look a little different, and it's a work in progress. Whoops. So similar to the model in the earlier grades, we have a cohort of 7th and 8th grade students that have trouble accessing text, so those are kids that need work on their decoding, their phonics. So those kids receive their intervention from the reading intervention team, the special ed teachers. But then we also identified, and given that literacy was our focus initially, a group of students that don't have a learning disability, but they struggle with comprehending text. They can read text just fine. They're accurate decoders, but they struggle with comprehending text. So we would say they're non-strategic comprehenders, so they need more strategy instruction. So those students were clustered and seen by a teacher to work on those skills. And then we have the three groups that are on level. So those are kids that are on level, and those are the kids that are dispersed through social studies or science, and they're seeing those teachers. For some of them are getting an extension of their ELA. Some of them are taking Spanish at that time. And then we were able to add math in. For those students that did not receive a reading intervention, we added math for them. So Just real quick about each one, I had mentioned that this is the group that's getting heavy intervention regarding decoding and oral reading fluency. These are the groups that are plugged into scientifically based interventions. And this group is progress monitored biweekly. This group here, these are the non-strategic comprehenders. They're working with the ELA teacher in some instances, just getting some more comprehension strategies and practice in that area. The kids that are on level, these are the kids that are rotating between the content area teachers, and this is where probably the bulk of the work needs to be done. Every 6 weeks, sometimes they would change the groups. Other times, we wouldn't necessarily change the groups if the groups were working well together. They were supposed to be working on activities, projects, extensions of their learning, but no new content, which I think made it tricky for some of the teachers in terms of planning. Other things we're starting to talk about with this group is the accountability of the students. There were some of the challenges are that the students would say, is this a graded period? So if RTI wasn't a graded period, they were saying, well, why am I doing this then? So it was tough to get some of the student buy-in because they weren't receiving a grade per se on their report card for that time period. So teachers were trying to brainstorm around how to get students a little more motivated around the fact that they're doing academic work, but they're not getting a grade per se for that time. The other thing the 7th and 8th grade added was something called Team Tuesdays. So during that RTI block on Tuesdays, students have an opportunity to meet with a teacher that they're struggling, in a class that they're struggling with. So whether they need more clarification or something, or more practice, or they're behind on a project, that's their opportunity on Tuesdays to do that. For some students, they're, that have troubles with organization, they might be organizing their locker or organizing some of their class materials. So they implemented that as a way to just be able to touch base with students individually. They did also add math interventions for kids that aren't in reading. So the kids that aren't being seen for some sort of decoding or comprehension group, some of those students were selected to receive some math practice, so in math interventions. So in this area, probably the 7th and 8th grade is the area in the school that needs the most work around RTI. Some of the challenges have been not having a really well-defined curriculum for ELA. We have a well-defined math program, but for ELA, science, and social studies, that curriculum needs a lot of work. So that's been challenging. And then we have a relatively new 7th grade team, so some of the teachers are new to this idea of RTI and new to the school as well. So one of the things we'd like to do moving forward, we've planned some professional development with the team that's in place, the 7th and 8th grade team, just making sure we're shoring up their understanding of what this process is, taking a look at all the data, beginning, middle, and end of year data, or benchmark data, and then continuing those conversations around student accountability during that time period. The other thing that they had mentioned they would like more, the classroom teachers would like more help in, is coming up with a better lesson plan structure for that time period, and just taking a look at how we're grouping students. So trying to be creative and find better ways to meet the students' needs at that level. The other piece they wanted was some specific comprehension practices. So many of these teachers are trained in their content area. They're not trained in how to do interventions around comprehension. So that's been a challenge for them as well. All right. Some of the other needs as a team we've talked about going forward, we'd really like to continue to focus on professional development and think outside the box on professional development and do some more of those in-house PD days where we can take a look at some data and brainstorm ways we can better address the students' needs. Other things we need to do in the area of collaboration is look at our new programs coming in, making sure we're collaborating with those in regards to implementation, and then also just that vertical planning that needs to occur as well. All right, so thank you. I know that was long, but it's a big process. It's a school-wide process, and it's something that's involved everybody here in the building. So we just want to make sure folks have all the information, but we're happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Thanks. Any questions for the presenters?
How many kids do you have regularly in RTI in Northwood?
400. Every student is in
So
an
how
RTI
many kids
period.
are you? All right, thank you.
Are you asking how many receive an intervention, like
How many are
a
in the
designated?
intervention program at any given time?
I don't know. What would you say? What percentage? What percentage, or how many? Maybe.
So not including student, I can just talk for the students that are seen by the reading intervention team on a weekly basis. There's 40 students currently. But then there's also identified students that would be seen as well.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers on the special ed population, how many there are specifically.
One of your charts said that you keep track of, I think as a percent, and if too many are in RTI, then there's a problem with the curriculum, and that's what prompted my question.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. When and I've seen this in other schools, when you start seeing large groups of kids needing interventions, we need to take a look at the regular curriculum, and that's where the teamwork with the classroom teachers has to occur. And that's why it needs to be a school-wide effort and not just a special ed and reading specialist effort. Everybody has to work together on those things.
So are we seeing that now? Are we seeing that now? Are there
Yeah, I mean, that takes some infrastructure and time to collaborate, and we have that in the schedule. It's in the calendar. Every week we're meeting.
No, I'm sorry. I meant,
Oh, sorry.
Are we seeing larger intervention populations than we anticipate?
In different pockets and different grades,
That's-
yeah,
that
we'll see
happens to be
some. Yeah, we'll see some larger groups come through. So yeah, absolutely. I think what Donna had showed when she talked about the kindergarten data from the prior year, that's a good example of people coming to the table saying we're not meeting the needs of enough of our students. Let's make some changes. So we did that and had a better result.
What is the average amount of time that a student is in an RTI program? You said they're in 6-week cycles. So once they go through 6 weeks, do they go out? Do they stay in another 6 weeks or another 6 weeks?
They stay in the 6 weeks until they're able to make the adequate progress for their grade level.
How long is that? Like I said, what's the average that they usually stay in that kind of program?
I mean, they could be in, some students are in for the full year. Some students, I mean, 6 weeks, we don't have too many students that are in and out that quickly. With the younger students, with the K through 2 students, they make gains more quickly. And that's the best time, and we've talked about here before, that's the best time to close achievement gaps is in grades kindergarten through 3rd. It's like this critical window for learning to read. After grade 3, catch-up growth is very, very difficult and takes an awful lot of time, energy, hours, all of that. So in the younger grades, when we're using these preventative methods and catching them earlier, we're able to get to them earlier, and some of those kids will progress out very quickly. When I think it might have been Donna that mentioned that wait to fail model, what that refers to is what used to happen before RTI practices were in places where you would be waiting for a student to, quote, qualify for special ed. Well, you don't qualify for special ed until you're significantly behind. So, and actually there's new legislation that was just passed in New Hampshire, a landmark bill. It's called HB 1644. And it's a bill regarding screening for dyslexia, and it's put into law that all schools by a certain date, I want to say it's 2017, January 2017, will have adequate screening measures in place, preventative programs in place for students that might be dyslexic. Now, many of the schools I work in or have worked in, obviously this is my charge in the schools I'm working in, this type of work, but for some schools they're going to have to do quite a bit of revamping of their system, of their infrastructure, of the screeners they have in place. But Northwood's ahead of the game. Those measures, the screeners are here, they're in place, they're being used. There's a preventative system. So it needs a lot of work, and I don't think anybody is, trying to say it doesn't, but it's going in a positive direction, and quite a bit's been done in 2 years. Any other questions for me or anybody else?
I like how you labeled it response to instruction model versus response to intervention model.
Yeah, actually, that was and it was a federal push because when this was initially rolled out years ago, school systems across the country were viewing this as a special ed thing. This is a new special ed initiative, so they sort of tweaked the name a little bit, although it's a little too late, but they tweaked it to response to instruction, because it should be a school-wide issue.
I saw it mentioned a couple times the ESSA and how it relates to personal development. Could somebody expand upon what that means?
Sure. So the Every Student Succeeds Act has replaced No Child Left Behind. And in this act, they are being a little more loose in terms of how schools can use funds for professional development. And I think what they're recognizing, some of the data nationwide, the research is recognizing that those one-day training program models where you just send the teacher out for one day and they come back, they're supposed to implement everything they learned, less successful than shorter amounts of time that are highly focused around an essential question or a piece of data.
Okay, so it's letting personal development time funds be used for those type of activities.
Yeah, to fund, you're right, to fund different types of professional development.
Thank you.
I just had a question. Do you find that everyone is on board with RTI throughout the school?
Well, you know, I think that's a good question. It's certainly, that's the way the train's moving. And I think the majority are on board. I certainly haven't seen a lot of pushback, but I guess I should turn it over to other folks. Oh, go ahead.
So I think the majority of staff are on board with wanting the results and wanting to be able to offer the supports, but there's a comfort level that varies from grade to grade, from class to class, from teacher to teacher, because it, for some people, is such a new concept of being able to offer instruction to students that you might not normally have. There's students that might be in the grade, but maybe you don't see them that much, or they might be in someone else's class for something and not in yours. But the comfort level, I think, is what is a challenge for our staff, because they're trying to develop lessons, and on top of their regular content area lessons, they're having to develop lessons for these extensions that don't include new material, but are a different way or a different approach to target core instruction within content areas related to reading. And a lot of them are not trained as reading specialists. They're not trained in the type of strategies to use to target comprehension or fluency or those kinds of things. So it has been a struggle for teachers, especially in the upper grades, because it is much harder to close the gap at the upper grades. So combining the difficulty of the instructional piece and the development of lesson plans with the buy-in and the savvy students who are questioning what the importance of it is, that's been something that we have been working really hard to try to address. And the fact that we are having the biweekly data meetings has created a format where we've been able to bring to the table the 7th grade team together, the 8th grade team together, the interventionists and special ed folks with the 7th and 8th and the 6th grade teams together. So we're definitely providing a format around which these strategy discussions can occur, and the comfort level is increasing. It's just, it's a challenge for some, and they are making steady gains in being able to feel like they are skilled in that delivery of instruction beyond their content level delivery of instruction.
Do you feel that the comfort level for some of the, even the lower grades, having the professionals in there that are teaching them, and their comfort level with the content has, I don't want to say harmed some of the students, but maybe some of the students haven't made the progress that they might have if the teachers were more comfortable with the teaching of the material?
I think it's a combination of factors. I think, you know, we're really trying to analyze it. We're doing as much as we can to try to analyze the environments. We're trying to analyze how we approach things. One of the things we looked at the beginning of this year was when we revamped the schedule, we looked at trying to free up, as was mentioned, trying to free up the related arts teachers, because one of the concerns last year was that there were too many students and not enough adults. We don't have this kind of roving team of interventionists that comes in and does all these different interventions in small groups. We have our own staff, and they're expected to take on that role. So one of the challenges, especially in the lower grades, was we freed up additional adults. We freed up the related arts team to be able to go into the younger grade classes for certain periods of time and tried to front load the adults so that the groups would be smaller. And that in itself was a challenge to primary teachers, because they weren't used to related arts professionals coming into their class to do instruction that's targeted in reading. So that in itself was a collaboration that needed to happen that for some people worked beautifully, and the comfort level did increase, and the targeted instruction got more intense and more effective. For some people it didn't work as easily, as quickly. So it's definitely a progression, but folks are becoming much more comfortable with the process. They're becoming much more comfortable with the opportunities they have to be able to collaborate and to seek out support. They're able to seek out the support of Mary Ann, or seek out the support of the reading specialist, Donna Turco. So they're really trying to make it work, and they're trying to use the resources most effectively, working smarter and not harder. Some people are further along on that pathway.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll move on to opening public comment. Sorry.
I would just like to add
Can you
a
say your
little bit
name? Sorry, name. No, name for Gary, please.
Linda Royer, I'm speaking as a Northwood employee. I would like to add that the first time that I heard about RTI was about 10 years ago. And at that time, like Mary Ann said, it was trying to get children that were eventually going to be in special education, trying to avoid that happening. And I think for the longest time at our school, RTI was tossed around and tossed around and tossed around. And then we were stuck in like level one, when are we ever going to get out of RTI level 1? And I think now that Mary Ann has come on board, I think that a lot of the staff really understands what RTI is all about, and I do think that many of us have bought into it, and we are seeing progress with our students. So I give kudos to what's going on.
Thank you. Any other public comment then? Is there any comment? I'd like to open up, as board members are also members of the public, if anybody would like to address the board in the public comment session, I invite you to now. Following the public comment protocol, we can do this at the beginning and the end. So, no? Okay.
I don't have anything, but I like this idea.
Allowing us as members of the public.
Oh, we are members of the
Yeah,
public, so.
to address the board.
If
There
the
was
public
some-
has an
there's-
open comment session, the board should have an open comment session as well.
Yep.
So I think that's a good idea.
So we can do this at the, if we do it with every public comment session, we can do it at the beginning and end of each meeting, and so everyone will have a chance to talk about things. Okay. That will close opening the public comment section then. Approval of minutes. We have 2 packets.
Motion to approve the minutes from May, what is that, April 21st?
Second.
Any discussion?
Page 22, line 176. Cafeteria fencing should be pricing.
Page 22.
Did I?
Oh,
Pricing.
sorry. My bad.
Let's read pricing.
Is this
Yes.
April 22nd?
66.
21st.
Line 176?
Yes.
Yep.
I like
Fencing. That's, is that in May?
I look at it on the phone.
Sorry, maybe we just skipped ahead. No, I think that's right. Yep. Any other discussion? Wait a minute. So, hold on. I just want to look 1 second. If you don't mind. All right, all in favor to approve the minutes? Aye. Opposed? None? Motion passes. So motion for the May 5th minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? discussion on these. I think this is where, it was actually May 5th.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
that comment applies to.
So, that was on the May 5th one
Yeah,
anyways,
it was,
right?
sorry.
Sorry.
Anything? No?
I didn't see any.
No, okay. You guys all set for the minutes? Okay, motion to approve the minutes for May 5th?
So moved.
I'm sorry.
Again.
Motion, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, 5-0. Marjorie?
Hi. My report begins on page 28. Again, there is no change been in the excess revenues. We're still looking at $121,000. In regards to the underspent amount, we are now looking at $566,000. I called, for this meeting, I wanted to make sure that I could close out like as many big ticketed purchase orders that I could. I gave Co Brown a call to find out what our enrollment was looking at right now. So our enrollment did go up. So I did an analysis for tonight, and what ended up happening was I released, I want to say about $82,000. I thought I wrote it in this report.
126.
Oh, 126. But I think 82 was in the regular ed, and the remaining was in the special ed. So what ended up happening is, like, at the beginning of the year in the fall, what I do is I encumber the full amount because I know what they have in September is probably going to change by the end of the year. So last year, when we went through the budget process, we budgeted for 236 students. In September, we had 228. In January, we had 225. So when I called them the other day and I had a discussion with Bob about it, because we knew we had had more enrollment since then, so right now we're actually at 235. But I was able to release that money because at this point, what they do is they prorate it by days. So we're not paying the full tuition for those students. It's depending on what day that they walk in to the building and they're registered.
So we have 10 extra students that we didn't have in September.
Correct.
Right, that
Why are we
doesn't-
releasing money? I don't get that. Shouldn't it be costing more money?
But
Because we budgeted for the full year. We're not paying for the full year now.
we've
That
got 10
just
additional,
happened
10 additional students since February.
Since February.
Oh, I see. So we're only paying for the.
Right, so we
Correct.
only,
Students have left also, right? I mean,
some have left.
September, we had how many?
September, you had 228.
All right, how many did we budget for?
236.
All right, and now we're at 235.
235.
But 235, only a portion of the year, so.
Right.
It's prorated, yeah.
Right.
So I just wanted to let you know, so we were able to release that amount of money. And then, where basically our underspent amounts are $97,000 in regular ed, $149 in special ed. Special ed transportation, elementary with $52,000 remaining, regular ed high school with $102, high school special ed with $148, and high school transportation of $34,000, and that pretty much makes up your $566,000.
And just for clarification, again, I know we've clarified this before, but the 34,000 remaining in high school transportation is special ed transportation.
Right.
It's not regular ed transportation.
Correct.
I'm just clarifying that again, just because of the issues that we've had.
Trips me up every time.
Thank you.
You got it.
I just, no, I'm asking and making sure that that's correct.
Yes,
is what
no,
I'm-
you're
I'm not-
correct,
Yeah, okay.
but I should indicate that
Okay.
in my notes.
Can I ask a general question about the anticipated amounts?
Sure.
Like, for instance, if we look at, I forget where it went, the school board expenses.
23,
What is it?
2310 on page 37, 8014.
Yes, thank you. School board services, right? So, just looking at this, I noticed that, we're over budget already, which is not great, but, some of these things, and I only picked this because it's something I looked at, we're gonna have more printing costs throughout the rest of the year, right? I mean, we're not done with that, but we're not anticipating anything. It's not encumbered, is it?
Printing for the school board?
Yeah. I mean, isn't that what these packets come from?
No, this comes from the SAU. These are covered by an
Oh.
SAU expense.
Okay, so,
Printing for you would be the
Annual
town
report.
report,
okay, so things like that.
our
I
our
see.
portion of that. Anything else that the school board wants to put together, send out to the public, that would be
All right,
covered under
so that
printing.
explains that, okay. All right. I was thinking we had more things to print out and was wondering why we didn't
Nope.
anticipate that money, but, okay, because it's the SAUs.
But that's a good point. I mean, we've encumbered, we've tried to get this as tight as we can. I mean, that's why you've got, you know, a $100,000 swing in tuition. We held on to that for a number of weeks to make sure that we've got it covered, and then when we've got it covered, then we put it over into the anticipated balance column. So, you know, we're trying to release the purchase orders as quickly as we can, and the anticipated, obviously, is getting down there, which is nice. But there's going to be a little bit of movement left with the encumbered, you know, with the purchase orders once we clean those up.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions on the?
Just, on the, under the building maintenance, on page,
2620 begins on 38 to 39.
yeah, on page 39. We're gonna have an anticipated building maintenance of $12,425.
Nope, it's not anticipated. That's your balance.
Okay.
I'm
It's the
sorry, I thought you
anticipated
meant, I thought you meant that should be anticipated.
Anticipated balance.
I got you.
Okay. Okay,
It's an anticipated balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
But again, as we get closer, we can get it tighter. A couple lines, you're going to see some movement in, substitute lines, obviously electricity, telephone, oil, those
Your
types of
paving.
things. We've got it encumbered, but obviously, we don't know exactly what that number is going to be.
Okay.
No one else has something? I have one other question. I was looking at the food service. I think it's at the end, because we'll be talking about it maybe later today anyway, but, so the food service, I guess the budget is about $147,000, give or take. Right? If we look back at the revenue, what we anticipate there, the food service, ends up being, that's on the very first page, the revenue report.
So on page 29,
So we're bringing in $111,200
correct.
through food service. So the difference between those two is around $36,000. That's the loss we're running this year on that. Is that true? Because we
Well,
have
I'm looking at your federal child nutrition,
Yep.
and I think you're probably going to receive more than that, as well as your food service sales. So I think between this total, I could probably see maybe an extra $5,000 in revenue coming in.
okay. So it'll
between
get us
now and the
closer
end of
to
the year.
25,000.
Yeah,
that we've
I
moved
think
over.
so. And I'm not sure, but I was also looking at your food milk line for that, and I think that's going to be closed. Typically, we can release maybe like $5,000 to $10,000 of that. So I think this year, that amount's actually going to be closed. So I'm not even trying to change that figure at this point and try to change the purchase orders.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Marjorie?
I have other things that don't pertain
Okay,
to the financials.
go for it.
So with the budget committee packet being sent out on Monday, I had an idea and I thought I would just pitch it to you guys to see if you would like me to send you all a copy to see what the budget committee gets as well.
I think that would be wonderful.
Just to keep you all in the loop. I can email it or I can mail it, it doesn't matter, but, okay.
Yeah, I would definitely
All right.
like to see that.
I just wanted to get the board's approval on that to see what you would think.
Email will be fine, I think, unless anybody wants a printed copy.
And just so you know, what we're
Printed
going
copy
to do is when we send those out on Monday, we're going to have Nancy at the office actually give, if the town will give us the information, we're going to try to call everybody individually to make sure that everybody got a packet, because 2 packets were missed last time. So we're gonna reach out and touch that just to make sure that that base is covered.
Good idea.
Tim, at the last meeting, you had mentioned something about you had heard that the Health Trust was giving back more money, that you thought you heard whispers about that. I did look into that. The only other thing that I can find out is that there are some school districts that were a part of Health Trust back in the day, and they had since left. so they are now trying to recoup their money from them. But Health Trust, the ruling was that if they had left before 2009, that they were not going to get that money. That's what I had heard. So I didn't know if you had heard anything else, or if you have any other leads for me to follow through on that. But I wanted to make sure I looked into it.
I can ask the lady again. I know she's been asked to come in and be part of the whole procedure regarding the legality of paying the old head person and hiring a new one and all of that. They're looking at a lot of stuff. But amongst that was the discussion of another, I forget the amount now, 180?
I thought you said it was 100. I wrote it down. I thought you said 184.
Yeah, that's the number that comes to mind.
But I didn't know if that was 184,000 or if it was
Million.
184 million.
Million.
So that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, 184 million. I'll check again, because I know
Okay.
she's had a couple of meetings since then with the State Department.
Because when I heard the 184, I was like, is that 184 million for the state, or is that maybe 184,000 for the school? So I was trying to I was doing all kinds of search engines looking for it.
What? I just think
Okay.
there's another 184 million that they overtook
Okay.
in order to augment their other enterprises.
Okay.
Which was deemed illegal by the Supreme Court.
Okay. I did look into it. That's all I could find, so.
I'll look into it again.
Thank you, because
I kind of ignored it.
Yeah, I'd love to follow through with it, just to make sure. And then, today was the deadline for the paving. So I put those together for you guys tonight. I'm not sure how you want to proceed with it. I'm sure you want to look at it, maybe give you some time before the next board meeting. So while I'm handing these out, I also thought I would tell you that we've had multiple meetings with the treasurer and TD Bank, working on your bank accounts and trying to get some fees eliminated and trying to see if we can maximize any interest that we can get. I'm not sure.
Thanks.
I skipped you, huh? You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So I made sure I waited as late in the day to make sure we had every bid possible, so these are the only two that came in. And I think that's all I have.
So for the paving, these bids, when would we like to get back to them? Is there any time limit on that?
Well, obviously, the earlier you can make a decision, the better, but, you know, we've still got a little bit of time. If you made the decision, even at the next meeting, if you're not ready tonight, that would be okay.
I just wanted to make sure I had them to you as soon as possible to give you,
Do you have a recommendation?
Well, it's the first time I've seen it.
All right. Yeah. I guess I'll see you guys.
There's,
I haven't reviewed them thoroughly.
Haven't, okay.
I literally printed them out and made copies at 4 o'clock.
there's big discrepancies.
Yeah.
Road 1 paving, I think they're paving Route 4, all the way down to the lights. So, I got a question on this, the RFP, because I know we were going back and forth, Wendy and I were going back and forth RFPs with Linda. What RFP was this? Do you know which one? Because
I brought a copy of it. Do you
Okay.
want to see it?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Barbie, can you give that to Shane? Thanks.
Yeah, so I think Shane, it'd probably be wise to give the facilities committee some time to look
Yeah.
over these and come back next meeting with a recommendation.
Okay.
That'd be great.
I do have a question, so, good.
Go for it.
So looking at the second one, Road 1 paving. So he's got $2,400 for the 2 patches in back. $3,700 for the patch in front of entryway near fire department and 3,700 for patch in front of entryway near fire department.
So that's 2 quotes for the exact same thing.
No, I assume half of it is for the school side of it and half of it is for the fire side of it.
Okay, so then we have $28,080.
For what?
Well, and that's my question. So if you recall, Tom wanted to find out what it would cost to do the entire front area from one end to the other, including in front of the main entrance and stuff. Is that what that is? I don't know. It's not clear at all what that is. But I mean, if you take the 37, 37, and the 24, the 3 areas that we're most interested in,
It kind of equals the same thing on,
that's my point, yes. And so on like the area in front of the fire department, on one is $3,700, on the other it was
$45.
$4,500.
Mhm.
The school was 42. So what's the total of Duncan? This should be so easy, and they make it so 4250.
I'm guessing it's 12 to 20.
Well, he's
12
giving you a
250.
deal on the first one. If you
Yeah,
do them both,
so it's
Yeah.
8250 and 3500.
Right.
as
And
opposed to.
4250.
Right, which is 12,
4250 is up
Okay,
the
so
other side.
8250, and the ramp
Right.
and the sinkhole is 3,500.
Correct.
So that's 11,750 versus
Wait, you said
I have-
8, 7, 8.
8250 and 3,500.
Oh, I see, yep, right.
I came up with
Yep, yep.
11,750.
And the 4250 if you're going to
4250.
do the other side.
No, down
no.
here,
Right.
8250.
8250 is
Contracted
both of
together.
those together.
He's contracted both
8250
together.
is the front of the school section and the fire station.
It's giving us a 500.
And 3,500
So he's saying
is
contracted
the,
together,
Okay,
so it's
yep,
750 if
yep,
we're doing both.
I got you. I
so
got
we're
you.
looking at 11,750 versus 74, really 10,000, 74,
98.
98,000
800.
with
2,500
Road 1 paving.
minus the 2,500 from the town.
Okay, so for.
Well, that's gonna be both cases, right? That's gonna be the case.
So what either myself or Tim will do, we'll contact Road 1 Paving and see what they exactly meant. I think what we're saying is what it's meant by, but we'll double check and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, but, I mean, there's, if you compare the two, so for instance, one is gonna go down 4 inches, the other one's gonna go down 6 to 12 inches of gravel.
Bless you.
And that's the reclaim is usually common 6 to 12 inches you want to go down.
Yes, but I mean, that's a big difference. 4 inches, finish and install approximately 4 inches of new gravel. And the other one says, we will haul away material we dig out and take it away, then lay down 6 to 12 inches of gravel compacted down, then we will lay down 2 inches of binder and 2 inches of state top. I mean, that's double. Those are the things we have to look at, all right.
Anything else for your report, Marjorie?
So, but if they do that double, well, I don't know, you guys.
Let them
can
figure it
do
out.
Yeah,
Let them
'cause
figure
I-
it out.
I'm like,
You wanna
thinking,
join
are we
facilities
gonna have like a
committee?
driveway that goes like this, but they'll dig it down so
You
that
dig
it's
it
even.
down, yeah.
But then I'm looking at
They-
the
they say dig
28,000
down.
and thinking, do we just do the whole thing? Because
they
we've
do
done
it-
this, now we're gonna do this. So, I mean, that's
So
the
what
other
was the
thing
money?
is,
We'll
do we do the whole front of it? You know, I mean, that's just something to think about too, because.
Does that come out of the facilities fund?
The discussion was to have it come out of the excess.
Right, it's
money
coming out of
that we
surplus
have.
probably right now.
All of it? This 28,000 or just?
Oh, I'm not talking about 28. I'm
Oh,
looking
okay.
at 98. But every,
Yeah.
Barbie is looking at 28. I don't know how anybody else is looking.
No, I'm just
looking
saying
at-
that now we've done the back lot, now we're gonna do the front lot.
Well, we're
So
going
we're
to
gonna
do a
have to
portion of
give
it,
to
and then
it.
later we can do some more of it. I don't know. That's
But yeah, the discussion was out of unexpended funds,
That's
Okay,
correct,
That's
yes.
what I wanted to clarify.
whatever it is.
Anything else? Well done. Okay, we have one other discussion later on in our agenda that would probably be very useful to have Marjorie here for. So if there's no objection, I'd like to move that forward to now so that we can release her afterwards, if everybody's okay with that. That would be the
Budget review.
2016-2017 budget review.
That begins on page 73.
Yep. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about regarding this? Proposed versus default budgets? And what we're going to do with it? What are we going to do with it?
I have some questions about why the default budget and the adopted budget are more than the proposed budget in some cases. And
Why the default budget is more?
yes,
Contracts.
or,
Or we reduced it, right? So there are some lines we reduced when we were putting together the budget.
okay, but these items don't have anything to do with contracts, it's for supplies. And I'm wondering why supplies got increased.
It's because if you, can I?
Go ahead, educate me, because
if-
I'm not getting that at
If
all.
you've developed a budget and you've reduced some of your supply lines, your default budget is actually your previous budget. So when you're developing a budget, if the budget that you're developing is actually a reduction in your supply lines, and your budget fails, it goes back to the previous budget, which is your default budget, and some of those lines may indeed be higher. In addition to, like Tim was saying, any contractual obligations like teachers' contracts, which get added to it.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about that.
And that's where Tim is saying that there is the money, like, because some of those things that we might have bought, and we had put 0 in our proposed budget, because we have our default budget, there might be $1,500 in that line that we can move around. And that's what Tim was saying, that's why he wanted us to look at them side by side, because now that's money that we can move around and maybe spend somewhere else, or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, you'll see that, I think, in the substitute wages too, because we looked at we reduced those amounts last year as well in our proposed budget, which did not pass. So I've reverted to the default budget for those.
And we barely used our substitute budget.
Well, that's
this
why
year.
they were reduced.
Yeah. And even in the reduction, we didn't even use much.
I guess my question is, what are we
we
trying to
didn't
get?
barely
Do we
make
have
that
a
much.
dollar amount in mind that we're trying to pull out? Are we going back to this 2/5 curriculum director thing? Is that the goal of this exercise?
If you're asking me, that'd be my goal, yes.
Okay.
But other people may have different opinions on
Okay.
that. But yeah, if we could find enough money to cover our
And
two-fifths
what is,
curriculum position.
and what is the total for that?
21,000.
For the 2 days. And then I've got a figure in here also for the, which isn't a very big figure, for the crossing guard, which I believe it's in here somewhere, 2,900, something like that. So that's also not in your adopted budget.
So if we were to ask you to go through and the budget and find that sum total of money for those two positions.
We could certainly go through here and make suggestions, yes.
And how would we record that, I guess? Because a lot of times when we're looking at stuff, we're looking at, adopted budget, default budget, whereas, we're somewhere in between, right? We're taking the default budget, but we're only
Right.
wanting to use how that.
You've got a couple of different ways to do this, and this is where the confusion starts when we start going to the budget committee with different budgets. Right now, your adopted budget is your budget. Okay, so let's just say, and I'm just picking a number. Let's say $30,000 is what we're looking for the curriculum director and the crossing guard out front. One way to do it would be to identify, to make sure that you've got that $30,000, and then overexpend the lines. Okay, you could overexpend a salary line by $30,000, knowing that you've identified it someplace else. Okay? The other way to do it would be to physically, as a board, find $30,000, whether it comes out of one line or 15 lines, and move it into the salary lines. That way, the benefit is that you're going to show ultimately a line that's not overexpended. But the drawback is that once we get to the budget committee, there's going to be a little bit of confusion because the lines are going to look different.
So would we put together like an amended budget that would contain the new numbers?
I believe that's what was done
I remember seeing that on the budget.
a few years ago. Isn't that what they did a few years ago, Tim, when you got the default budget, you made a
That's correct.
amended budget?
Yes, and I just disagree in a little bit, don't think that's where the confusion came. The confusion came when Frank Markowitz convinced the board to allow him, he was bringing us sheets of paper sometimes that would have 6, 7, 8, 10 small amounts of money that he wanted to take out of one account and put into another account. And the goal was to make it look like we were really smart at the end of the year and everything worked out, which it doesn't, rather than setting a budget, which I'm in favor of, a new budget, an adopted or amended or whatever you want, that we start out the year, and then as we go through the year, don't change it, show pluses and minuses as to how we do, but, and the budget committee will have no trouble working with that as long as we only do it one time, and we show them what we did. That really wasn't the big confusion. The big confusion was, I mean, we were moving, it seemed like sometimes $10. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember the budget committee hated the amended
Oh,
budgets.
it was ridiculous. And I would never want to do that again. It was a mistake starting out, and it ended up quite the disaster. So we need to show pluses and minuses, but I really, well, no, I don't really think, I know there's $30,000 in there. I am positive beyond a shadow of a doubt. So we need to identify where that is, make the moves, and start our new year out with a budget that we can work with, look at and see, and do our job.
If that's what the board would like, then we would be happy to go back through and bring a identification of those two positions, that amount of money, back to you next time for your consideration of moving.
So while we're on the subject, is there anything else that was in our proposed budget that we really want to try to get into? I mean, I don't know if you guys remember.
So I just have a question on this amended budget thing. It's not, that's, because we're not changing the number, the final number, we can amend it any way we want?
We can do whatever we want.
Okay,
The Supreme
so
Court
that's
said
just
we
a
can-
working, it's just the working sheet that
Right.
we're going to
Yes.
work off?
Right.
And
That's correct.
do we have to present that to a vote or anything to the budget committee before we do? Okay,
Absolutely not.
just because I've never worked through that,
If
so
we
I'm
just
just
do it
asking.
one time, if we're not moving money all the time during the course of the year, physically moving, making this line look more and that one less.
Right.
All they want to know is, this is our proposed or our amended budget. This is the budget we're going to work on, and then they can compare that to what we spend or don't spend, and it'll make sense. It's just a one-time, but trying to move lines up and down $30,000, I think would cause them a far more grief than doing it one time, and then they can see what we're doing clearly.
Yeah, there may be some pushback from the budget committee anyway, I bet, but we'll try to explain it to them the best we can, hopefully.
The bottom line budget, you have control over that.
So what we're asking Bob to bring back is the crossing guard and the curriculum director. Are we asking him to bring back the areas that they want to pull the money from? I just want to make sure
I
we're
mean,
clear on
I
that.
don't think we're asking them to do quite that yet. I think we're asking them to show us where the money is. The sooner we have it emailed, then I could, or you could, we could respond to that as to if we think that's where the money should be, but, or at the next board meeting.
But what their
And then based on that,
recommendations
make a
are.
decision. I mean, it's hiring time now. We need to, if we're gonna look for a part-time curriculum director, we need to get that out there. You know, the year is not that far away, the new year.
So I guess I'm wondering, if we're going to make an amended budget, which it sounds like that's where we're leaning to, I mean, should we go through the rest of the lines and see? I mean, we did a lot of work on that, on our proposed budget. You know, I don't want to throw that all away. Could we just try to get as close to our proposed budget as we can, given that the bottom line will obviously be different? We'll have to do
Do you
something
want to
different.
spend this meeting time doing that, or do you want to leave that up to Bob and
No, I was going
Marjorie?
to leave that up to them.
Oh, okay.
When this.
I would be happy to take
What's that?
suggestions as to where
The money.
they feel there is extra money based on our previous experience that we could take and then move into the correct line to have a a curriculum director. If they found 50,000, then let's see it. And, if they found 40, if they found 30, or if they found 100, I'd like to, I didn't bring my paperwork. I have a number already, that I think we could pull out of the adopted budget and move to different lines in an amended budget. And it's a simple process. It's really just comparing the adopted budget to our proposed budget.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Should we try to
And
get
pretty
this close
much
to the proposed
ignore the
budget?
default budget right now. We know what our figures
Go ahead,
are.
Wendy.
So I did the exercise of going through our entire budget with what we proposed and what at that time was the default budget, now the approved budget. So I have notes on all the lines, what we lost, what we gained, and where the differences are. So if
Cool.
people want to look at that or just want to copy, they're just my notes, but a lot of it was just things like new equipment. Science new equipment, music new equipment, new furniture. It's all those new one-time things that were proposed.
There's some good lumps in there.
But I mean, I have that exercise done, if people want just a copy of my notes to start with. I'm happy to share that.
So, why don't we have a motion to ask the superintendent to come back with us with a amended budget?
We need a motion, though?
No, we don't need one, but
Oh, okay.
to be clear, to make, so that everybody knows exactly what we're asking.
Motion to have the administration come back with, sorry,
Money.
money.
With an amended budget.
I would
For the
say
curriculum direct-
suggestions for an amended
Okay,
budget.
yes.
so.
Sure.
Yeah, to find, what is it, $31,200 or whatever the
Whatever it
crossing
is.
guard is?
Yeah, we'll identify everything.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Right.
Yeah, all right. Make it so, yes. Yeah. No, don't
Okay,
say it.
we'll do that.
Is there anything else we want to talk about the budget at this time? Does anyone have any other need for Marjorie that we can think of? Right. Okay, I'll bring that up now.
So we're going to talk about payroll policies. I would be curious if she has any suggestions or thoughts. Has she looked through them? And I wanted to know, there was a payroll change in how we pay paras. Does that need to be implemented into the new payroll policy?
Did you read those?
I was going through the agenda, and I wasn't aware of it until tonight.
Okay.
And I was actually going to see if I could talk to Bob about that tomorrow, because I would actually like to talk to my staff about your payroll policies. Not only that, but the substitute policies. That came up when the auditors were just here, and one of the things that your policy does not state is how much money that we pay in here. Like, it doesn't say how much we are to pay substitutes. So when they when they go through their selective testing, it comes out and they're like, well, where's the approved rate for this? And all we have is a hire sheet, but there's no policy to actually follow that. So that did come to my attention, and I was hoping to talk to Bob about it tomorrow, so that way I could talk with Linda in HR and Missy in payroll and review the new contracts, like you just said, in regards
Yeah.
to the para.
It only regards the paras.
Right. It might,
No change in the teacher contract.
I read through, I'm familiar with what we did in the contract, and reading through the policies, I believe they're in line with each other. I'm no expert on that, but.
If it would help expedite the discussion, we certainly could move it to the next agenda and make sure that those discussions take place.
I would appreciate it.
I think we should. We're trying to move it along, but I
Yeah.
think we should do it correctly.
Thank you, Tim.
So when we get to the policies, we'll delay the ones that deal with the pay until these get answered. Maybe we can get the other ones, hopefully. It is only the first reading too, so it'll come back. Anything else from Marjorie from anybody? Nope. Thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you.
On to principal's report, please.
Thanks. The report in your packet has just two things I want to highlight and then a couple things I want to add. I did want to recognize the National Spanish Exam medalists. They were announced and they've been published in here, but I just want to first give kudos to Miss Rush for her successful instruction. It really is a remarkable foreign language program that we have here at the middle school level for so many students to be able to score so well on this national Spanish exam. It's not just a Spanish exam for New Hampshire, it's a national Spanish exam. So we did have one silver medalist in the 8th grade, Ben Brieger. We had 3 bronze medalists, Victoria Johnston, Ryan Nestor, and Brenna Roy. And then we had a bunch of honors medalists, Hunter Adams, Kate Blake, Jaden Belanger, Lillian Broom, Brianna Burke, Ethan Meeker, Morgan Tatum, Mary Toms, Paige Valley, Jenny Betancourt, Andrew Qualia, and Darren Sweet. And they'll be presented with medals for their recognition. But it really is a tribute to the program and the strength of the program to be able to have middle school students score to this degree. The drama program, I just wanted to make mention because the next meeting is after this, but the spring mystery play, Baker Street Irregulars, is being held the 25th, which is next Wednesday, and also the 26th, next Thursday at 6:30. We just invite everybody to come. We'd certainly love the board to be able to see the production. It's a lot of work, and at this point in the year, it's the 4th drama production we will have done in this school for the year, so it's sure to be an awesome production, but I just wanted to remind everybody that it's next week and invite you to come. That's what I have that's in the packet. There is one typo, sorry, my bad. At the very bottom of the technology update, the NEWA testing begins next week, which is this week, for grades K to 4 so far, not due far. Sorry, that's a typo. We'll fix it now and not have to worry about it later. Any questions on what's in the packet? Great, just a couple other things to add. I did have a speech report. Miss Nelson gave us a speech update to mention, so I want to make sure I recognize that the speech pathologists have spent the past 2 weeks teaching 3rd grade students about hearing and hearing loss as part of May is Better Speech and Hearing Month. Students learned about ear anatomy, how we hear, causes and types of hearing loss, and ways to prevent hearing loss. And the students were even able to create their own edible ear using, which they loved, using food materials to construct their own replica of the human ear. So we don't talk a lot about those kinds of special services from OT and PT and that kind of work. So I did want to recognize Miss Nelson and make sure I shared that because that came up very recently. The DC trip is fast approaching. It's like 10 days away. So we have a scheduled mandatory meeting for parents this Monday night at 7 p.m. Ms. Rush and I are working on final preparations for informational sheets, packets of information. The company has been sending us different things that we're handing out to students. There's journals, there's lanyards, there's different kinds of items. So we have asked, we're making it as mandatory as can be, and we're expecting that each child is going to attend with their parent or guardian so that we can give everybody a consistent message about the information, and I can certainly share those details at the next meeting or prior to the next meeting because I will be in DC for the next meeting, which is on June 2nd. But we're excited. We are excited. Things are falling into place. The itinerary is jam-packed. There's so much going on. The rooming lists are going to be shared at this meeting, and medical issues are going to be addressed, and we're going to just make sure we have everything in place so that it's a memorable trip and that we've covered all the bases. So it's awesome. We're psyched about it, and we'll certainly be talking about it at the June 16th meeting, the second meeting of June, with all the details and give you all of that information. 2 different things that have come in, and hopefully these are just quick things, but we had 2 donations come in, which are small items, but we certainly can use them for some targeted expenses if we have permission from the board to do so as we try to finish out this year. The Target check came in. It's the last of the Target checks for the program that we run each year, and it's a $50 check to be used for anything we need as it lists in the literature, classroom supplies or whatnot, and that's for $50. So I would like to ask the board's approval to be able to spend that on some supplies that teachers are asking for these last couple of weeks of school. And in addition, there's another one from a man named Dale Sylvia. He had come in with $25 cash and said he wanted to make this donation on behalf of Northwood Hannaford for $25. I'm not sure exactly what the basis for it was, but he wanted to have our teachers have $25 for classroom supplies. He gave us cash and wanted to say that it was on behalf of the Northwood Hannaford. So there's a $50 Target donation and a $25 Hannaford donation made by some person, and I wanted to ask the board's approval to be able to accept that $75 total for some things for the classrooms as we finish out the year.
So moved on both.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes.
One other FYI, there was just, as we were doing, as we were sending through final requisitions for items and trying to level out all of the accounts that we have, we've zeroed out just about every account, and there was one requisition that came in a little bit later that was more than just a few dollars, and it was from a new teacher who had requested replacement for rugs, which really, after I looked at them, really do need replacing, and whiteboard that I don't think she thought that she could ask for those types of items in terms of equipment, and the total for the requisition was $620. I held on to it because those particular lines didn't have enough money to cover them, but I know we've talked about having other money in other lines, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention that I'd like to be able to honor that last request for those two particular items for that one third grade classroom. The total $620, but they would fall under equipment and or furniture and not something that has the $620 already sitting in it.
So what line would you take it out of?
It typically would be new equipment and or furniture.
But you said you don't have money in those.
We don't, but
So
we
what
have
But you can
lines
overspend
Are
them.
you suggesting that we take it out of?
any that have excess.
All right.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on this?
I mean, I don't mind, I just would like to know where it's coming from.
I
You know,
agree.
I just, if it's
There's
in the
like
budget, I mean, if we
$12,000
have money
sitting
elsewhere in the budget, I know
What
we do. I
about building
just,
maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, we have like $12,000 in building maintenance and or we have.
500 and some $1,000.
Right,
I'm not
yeah.
arguing the money, that's not my point. I just want to know, would like to have been able to know where you're going to take it out of.
But when it comes out of the budget, it'll overexpend a certain line.
I don't mind that.
you
Yeah,
know.
I just would feel comfortable knowing where it's going to come from. But regardless of that, aye.
Substitute wages, $4,800.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Taking out of where? Substitute wages?
I mean, we
can't
can
take it out of
Typically, you just
facilities?
overspend the line.
we can
I mean,
take it out of
so-
facilities, we can take it out.
Just take it out of the building maintenance.
That makes more sense to me.
It's kind of more of the same line.
Sorry, what was the votes over on the side?
I said aye. yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just, in the future, I don't think it's an unreasonable request, I just would like to know where it's coming from.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And some of these lines have open POs that we don't know how much of the PO is going to be utilized, so.
It's not in blood, I'm not looking for anything, I just,
Any other questions for Wendy?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What happened with the summer curriculum work proposal? Where did we leave that?
We left that you all had approved a certain amount of money, I believe, if I look back in the minutes, it was about $5,500. And we had given you the proposal last time for the ELA curriculum, which is just about a $5,500 proposal.
Correct.
So I went back to the staff and said, that's the most fully developed proposal with the most specifically engaged plan with staff attached to it. So our plan is to move forward with that particular proposal. We didn't have any more specific proposals come through for either math or science. And right now, with the new math curriculum, the new reading curriculum, and this big proposal to continue work on ELA, I'm not sure we would even have the staff have interest or time in attaching that. I think one of the things that staff is looking for is the curriculum coordinator to be able to oversee some of these things. With a reading specialist, we have somebody in that area who can pursue the ELA, who can oversee the ELA. So that's why that's a great pathway for us to be on. Because we don't have a math specialist, we don't have someone in that same role spearheading the math curriculum development piece. So I think at this point in time for this current year, we're going to move forward with the amount that you offered and approved for that ELA summer curriculum program for the group that was proposed.
I think this is really important just because you have this new reading program, and I think that it's
Yeah,
important
yep.
for you to be all on the same page with
Yep.
the curriculum. But I'm wondering, just looking at the packet that you gave, there's the PowerPoint presentations in there that say multiple times, wouldn't it be great if we were all on the same page with our curriculum? So I'm seeing that you've presented this idea to the teachers before, and I'm just wondering if you've gotten results. And if you don't get results, then what happens? Because it's already, these presentations have already been made in the past. So if you do it again this summer, what are the chances that it's going to have any effect is what I'm wondering.
We're getting more results and we're making more progress. We've developed the power standards. There's more curriculum that's consistently aligned vertically as well as horizontally. We're putting more things in place. So we have been moving steadily along the ELA pathway, and that goes back 2 years prior to me getting here with the focus monitoring group targeting RTI instruction and curriculum development in the area of ELA. So that's been a consistent pathway that we've been on. It's hard to be on two parallel pathways at the same time to that same depth with the staffing that we have and without a curriculum coordinator and or without a math specialist. We would love to be on parallel tracks with developing the ELA curriculum and the math curriculum at the same speed to the same degree. We're just not there yet. We're going to continue with the new reading programs, which is going to move us forward, and certainly the alignment with the new math program in its second year, going 4 to 6, is going to continue at least some work through the math.
I just don't want to wait on the math until it's too late that everybody's already decided to do it their own way.
Right.
And then you have, 4 different teachers teaching it 4 different ways.
Right.
To start sooner rather than later on the math would be my wish, but I don't know. If you don't have the staff for it, maybe we could plan it for next summer or just put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, we are gonna keep working at it. I think the 4 to 6 math with the second year, moving into the third year also, we're definitely moving in that direction. We're definitely moving toward being able to have an aligned curriculum and being able to have a program that supports what we want to have as an aligned math curriculum.
Thank you.
So, so the bottom line is, how much are you expecting to spend? And does everybody realize that that needs to come out of this year's money? So.
The answer is yes, and the dates were planned for June. I think we're looking at 2 dates, maybe the 17th and the 21st, so they're going to be doing the work in June before the last week of school. And I think the amount, if we look back at the minutes, I think it was $5,500.
$5,490 is the total that you gave on the proposal.
And I think what Barbie had suggested at the meeting that we talked about, we started at 51, but I think we went to 55. We can, I'll double check the figure in the minutes, but yeah, it's about 5,500 for that work, and it's targeted and it's identified per person, per hour, per date, and it's just going to be a matter of making sure that everybody's aligned with the right dates. Yeah, that work is going to happen in June, and we'll submit the hourly cards, the hourly time cards for the people that do it, and it'll be paid out. It'll be requested to be paid out before the end of June. And the work will be completed before the end of June. So you'll get an update. You should get an update by the, maybe not the first meeting of July, because you'll have a new administration working on it, but maybe the second meeting of July.
Thanks.
I just have 2 quick questions. The slide presentation that we saw tonight, is there any chance we could get that online so that we could?
Yeah, no, it's going to be
show
on our
parents?
website.
It'll be on the website?
Yeah, oh yeah, we said that at the beginning.
Okay.
We're going to post it on our website, just
Great.
like we did the kindergarten presentation in a similar format. We're going to make sure it gets on the website. Yep.
I just had a question. I was just looking over the library materials in the packet. This is part of your report.
Okay.
With the income that came in from the book fair and from other sources, is that money earmarked somehow for library things? I mean, this comes in as unexpected revenue, I would imagine, right? Do we somehow earmark that for book author visits and stuff like that? Does that just go into the general fund?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, she mentions a couple of things. It supports the author visit program. It can
Right.
cost as high as, what she mentions, $1,500. The profit also comes for 2 of the online databases, the EBSCO host and the Gale biography and context. And it also works, it's also used for the library book fair activity account to cover purchase of new books that are requested after September. So Ms. Moore is pretty meticulous. Her budget was one of the model sections of the budget that we were able to zero out because she's very deliberate and very specific about what she knows she's got and what she knows she wants to spend. So she uses that to the fullest extent, and she does specifically target those areas with the funds that she makes.
I do not believe that that money comes in and goes into the budget. I think that's one of the student account things.
I think that used to be like that, and I think it changed, is what I heard.
Maybe we should find out.
Yeah, I wish I asked this
I'm not
one.
even
Yeah, I believe it goes into a student activities account.
I do too. Yes, I absolutely do. That it goes into a student activity accounts, and it is absolutely earmarked for
That's great.
certain specific
I can,
things.
we double check on that?
I can
Just-
double check that, but I think Tim's
I
right
see no
on
conduit
it.
to get that easily into the
Yeah.
excess revenue or whatever,
Right.
unanticipated. I just don't see how that would really happen, nor should it happen. It should go specifically for what it came in for.
I agree. I'd heard that we weren't doing it in the student
I
activity
don't
account. but
believe that's
okay.
true.
Good. I hope you're right.
The last piece that was not in the original, because we were just working on some things, is the building and grounds report. I just wanted to give you an update, because this is one time that I didn't have it initially in the report that you got in the printout. We're waiting on a mason to look at the front walkway and the base of the flagpole for the cost of the repair in that area. We're also looking toward what the cost is gonna be for addressing the caulking on the side of the building and in the courtyard, which the facilities committee had mentioned before. He has spoken with Spectrum Sign. 2 of the channels that hold the letters have come loose, and they'll come down and address that issue. That sign is still in need of addressing. We thought it was all fixed, and they are needing to come back. CML Mechanical will be down to give a quote on moving the heating and ventilation system in the CAF. That's another part of the progression of getting some estimates for how we address the ceiling and the noise level. We're continuing to work on getting estimates for pieces of that bigger process. Road 1 Paving was here to do the estimate for, you know that part, and Capital Paving was here to do the same thing. And then we are getting into a grass cutting schedule that had come up recently. The area that was bush hogged has been cut. So Mr. Tom is working on making sure that that now becomes a regular part of the maintenance, and he's trying to reestablish the relationship that he has with the mowing guy that starts in July, or just prior to July. But our staff is taking care of that at this point moving forward, now that we're obviously in the spring season. So that's being addressed.
Is any more brush cutting needed?
I have not heard that there is more needed, but do you know
I don't
if
think
there
so.
is? I thought they
I'll
had.
check with Mike again, but I think we did pretty well, that cleanup day. So,
I'm gonna take that back to my brother's place and leave it with him. That's why, before
Okay.
I take it back.
yeah, I'll check
the
with Mike.
equipment.
Yes, the bush hog, whatever it is.
Okay.
RFPs for the art rooms. Was that, any feedback? Has anybody
I
gotten?
have gotten nothing. I don't know if Linda Osborne has them, and I don't know what that closing date was for that one. I know she was working on that one and the paving at the same time.
Okay.
I haven't heard.
Okay, could we just check on that?
Anything else for Wendy?
Those panels are in the process of being installed for the artists in residence. We were attempting to do it. They're so delicate and they're so heavy, so they're trying to be very meticulous about the way they're installing them. We are hopeful to have. We were hoping to have one up tonight, but they didn't get it up there tonight. But we will hopefully have it up for the next meeting or prior to that. So when we have them installed, I will certainly send out an email and let you know so that you can come by and see them. But they're gonna look so beautiful. I can't wait.
All
I
right,
can't
thank you.
wait.
Monthly enrollment report.
I'm so happy.
Monthly enrollment starts on page 48. Any questions?
What's Northwood SK?
Yeah, any questions or
Where are you?
on the
Page
Co-Brown
50.
one?
Where it says out Northwood SK as a 4-4, et cetera? Is that school or Stratford Kindergarten? I couldn't quite figure it out.
School kid.
Hope they all are.
Ideas?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Other than that, I had no questions.
I'll let you know what that is.
All right, thank you.
Do we know the amount of total of freshmen, all 3 SAUs? I mean, districts for next year, for freshman year? Does that,
Next year for freshmen? I don't.
yeah.
Look at
Probably not.
I know that'll probably
Yeah,
be
we
the
can
joint
fi-
board,
We
but
can figure ours, but I
I
can,
can't, yeah, I don't know, I just like, if we could just add for what's gonna be anticipated coming from Nottingham, just to know the numbers. Just like a little side note on there, gonna be, hey, this amount's coming from Nottingham, Stratford, Barrington.
get that to you.
Okay, moving on. Policies. DKA, I believe, is the one we just discussed about delaying till next meeting, so that Marjorie can meet with the policy committee and figure that stuff out. So unless there's any objection, we can just pass over that for now. We'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting. Policy GBJ. So I believe for this policy, it'd be nice to see what the old policy said, because I think this is just what the new policy proposal is. I suspect that the only difference is the second paragraph. The district will not disclose any teacher personally identifiable data or information to any person outside of the district, except as may be required by law. Such data or information may be shared to district employees as necessary. And I think that just because that's what the note says. And I assume we're just going on the template. Anybody have any discussion on this one?
So you think this is new?
I don't. I think
All right.
the second paragraph is new. But I don't know for sure.
No. I mean, if the second paragraph was new.
Typically, what we do, if something is coming out of your policy, we do the strike-through and leave the wording there. And if
Right.
anything is going in new, we
Exactly.
usually bold it so you can identify it, so.
That's our current policy right there.
This is just the current policy? Okay. Yeah, I was just going on the note on the NSBA report, where it says the second paragraph is new as of September 2015, which is after we revised it previously. I have them all.
If that's so, it certainly should have been indicated
It should have.
to us.
Okay, so bold is new.
Typically, what we've done in the past is strike-through is what we're getting rid of, and bold is new wording.
Well, this was revised by the board May 7th, 2015, so that shouldn't have been new, depending on when.
Right, right.
Oh, that was September, so, yeah, I guess it would have been September of 2015.
Give me 1 second, I will look.
So,
Typographical.
Yeah, I saw that.
REVISED.
Yep.
because under the recommended, on the next page, it says, the NHSBA note, September 2015, second paragraph is new.
And it looks like above that it was May 7th, so that should be new. You're right, Keith.
Either way, for a second reading, we can identify that better, so it's.
Right. All right, I'll have to look this up later. I'll get back to it.
I'll double-check that, and for the second reading, I'll make sure that it's
clear what's
well identified.
Okay. Anything else for this policy? Are you happy with that?
Why do we have a policy in here that's already been rescinded?
Which policy are you talking about?
It's right after that one. It still says policy GCE. It's still the substitutes.
Jeez.
The whole policy has been,
Okay,
Scrapped.
so you're skipping over the,
yeah.
So still on GBJ, I am so confused now, because, I mean,
All right.
both of those read identical. So I really don't know what we're doing there. If you look at the two of those,
What does the R stand for?
no, just, well, we haven't even got to the R yet.
No, well, it's GBJR, sorry, GBJR.
Which is the next one, personal records.
Yeah, that's why I was confused where you went.
Okay, sorry, I skipped
okay.
ahead.
Right.
So, yeah, the only difference between the two is
I'll
that
go back.
Appendix GBJ R is added under legal references.
Anything with R is your rules and procedures.
Yeah, there's nothing, just exactly the same.
Oh, I see, it says down here, appendix GBJR on the policy. It says
Oh, I see, I know what they did.
Appendix, so that's the
This is the
appendix.
recommended.
So if
This
there
is
are
the-
any suggestions for GBJ, I will double-check with Scott and make sure that it's identified appropriately, whether it's a revised policy or not for the second reading.
No, I figured, I know, the recommended, what this is what we need to approve, and this was the recommended that you guys just transferred over and made it new. So this is not an old policy, this is the new policy that we need to,
Well, this part of it is,
new.
is
GBJ,
old. This
right?
part right here is what, because the last time it was, is there, and then this is September, so this was added in, it looks like afterwards. So this should be new. But this part of it, but this is coming from the NHSBA
Yes.
website, yeah.
All right, hold on, I do have the policies on my computer here. Okay, the policy GBJ that we have, at least the one that's on the Northwood website, has the first paragraph, it does not have the second paragraph. Okay, so.
We'll identify it appropriately.
So this was
So that
our
should be-
first reading.
So this is the addition of the second paragraph, is basically what we're looking at here. Okay, so we'll just bold that, make sure it's clear.
We will
The next
make
one.
it clear.
Okay, are we ready to move on to GBJR?
Are you gonna?
That's not a policy, is it?
GBJR?
I thought he
Part of
just
the
said that that
appendix.
wasn't a
R
separate policy.
are the rules and procedures.
So it's not a policy.
Okay, so you want to do them at the same time, is what you're saying? It's a policy.
This is policy number.
Yeah, R just is an indicator, I think, that it's a rule, right? It's still a policy.
You, normally what happens is anytime you see an R, those are the rules and procedures to carry out your policy. So those are not necessarily, you don't need to do anything with your rules and procedures. You can either include them to support your policies, or you don't need to include them. Either way is acceptable. Some places do the policies and then turn the rules and procedures over to administration to make.
Okay, so as far as I can tell, GBJR is not something we have right
It
now.
looks like this would be the first time because of, there's
Yep.
nothing below.
Right.
Was this a recommendation that it should be included?
This is something that I have an issue with, that we talked about
I was about to
already.
say that, yeah.
I'm not really pleased with the idea of us having to fumble through this. I would really appreciate a recommendation to come with each one of these policies. It
We
says,
didn't
this
have a
is the
meeting,
difference.
So, yeah.
And this is what we recommend, as opposed to us trying to figure
Yeah.
out, we just spent like 20 minutes going over something that the policy committee should have provided to us. Because, I mean, to
like-
go through pages of this is fine, but I would like to see the work already completed with the recommendation, as opposed to us trying to decide which word is new.
Yep. You had mentioned something like a cover sheet or something like
Yes,
that.
a cover
for that. I
sheet,
think
exactly.
That'd be. we
This
can
is
ask-
where, this is what the difference is.
Yep.
This is where it currently stands, this is what we recommend changing, or we recommend leaving it the same, or whatever the committee recommends.
Can you please pass that on to Scott?
Yeah, I mean, typically, what we've done in the past has been very clean and easy to identify with just what you're talking about. We have struck through, we've taken your policy, we've struck through any language that is going to be taken out by the policy committee, or suggested, and then any change in language is bold italicized. So you'll see the entire policy, you'll see what's coming out, you'll see the suggested changes along the way, and that's typically how we've presented them in the past, and it's been pretty clear.
Okay. Well, that wasn't made clear then, because I'm looking at this and they're
This is-
looking at it too and still saying that they don't know what's going on, so.
So on number 5 there, I just wish somebody would check on that. I certainly agree that if somebody asks for it, a list of employees should be given out. I also understand that the employees and how much money they make has to be given out. In fact, we post that in the annual town report. I'm very uncomfortable with giving out addresses to any citizen upon request of our teachers and paras and stuff like that. So is that really true? I'm not sure about that. That seems a little much to me. I don't think that the public has a right to know the address of teachers and paras and such.
Yeah,
I
but
would
under,
like that checked.
under 91,
I see it says that, but many mistakes have been made. I'm not saying it's not right, I just wish somebody would check that. You know, it just, in today's world, I don't think that's right, to give out addresses of teachers or anybody working in this school. In today's world, I don't think that's fair to them. I can't imagine why anybody needs to know Mrs. Daypre's address. I really don't see
It's
that.
here in the school.
Yeah, that's what it is.
511 First New Hampshire Turnpike?
I'm just trying to, I don't see anything about addresses at 91A1. We'll have to look closer. So, yeah, let's bring that back for a second reading with that. Okay, are we ready to go to GCG? I know you,
I think this falls underneath the same thing, right? As the first one we were talking about, because.
you want to wait?
Doesn't give the wages.
Okay, so let's wait and put that on the agenda for next week, so Marjorie can look at it.
So I'm just a question, that's a whole, this policy is a new one, as
Looks like
opposed
it.
to the one that was it was scrapped by the last board.
I'm not sure which one you're talking about for that, but this looks like it's a new one.
CGC, and then after the first 2 pages of that, there's CGC, and then there's one that says category R on page 59. I'm looking at page 60 and 61. It looks like that policy,
Looks like
that version of the policy was rescinded by the previous board, but there's no date.
I don't believe it has been rescinded.
No,
I
this
think
is-
that's
This is the
a,
proposal to be
okay,
rescinded.
I had a
the
question.
proposal to.
Yeah. So it looks like maybe GCG would
I believe it would take
take
over.
the place of GCE.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, this one's done correctly,
Right, that's what,
with strike-throughs and
Yep.
a new policy for us to consider. But
So the-
again, so this is the one, I mean, we could say it's first reading if we want, but this is one that Marjorie weighed in and felt that we should
Wait,
have in our policy what we're paying or whatever, how we determine that. And so we need to go back and let Marjorie and Dr.
Yep.
Godomsky figure out the right way.
So is there any other comments on that otherwise? We might as well get them all the information now, so they come back, we can maybe be done with it. Right, if no one has any comments, I think that'll do it for policies. So we look forward to seeing those again.
Yep.
Superintendent's report.
Okay, a few things. I'll start with page 62, the paraprofessional nominations for next year. Mr. Runing met with the administrative staff and came up with this list, and looking for your approval.
So I'm assuming we can't nominate the whole list because Tim has to
Well, we could,
recluse.
but you
well,
wouldn't, you couldn't,
yeah, I guess, but he has to
would
recuse
have her-
himself for the whole list then.
right.
Are there any people working on, for us now that are not on this list?
That's what I have 2 questions. There's one name listed on the Northwood School website that is not in this list. I don't know if that's just not been updated. And then there are 3 names on this list that are not on the website. So I don't know if the website just hasn't been updated with new hires yet. So I don't know, can we talk about those specific names?
We can go into non-public and have a discussion if you'd like.
We do
I
have,
would like to know the particulars. Other than that, I don't have a problem with it, but I just would like to know who was coming back and who wasn't, or whatever.
Sure.
so we have a non-public session scheduled for, at the end of the meeting. We could
Come
reconvene
back to
then and then
this?
come back and vote
Yeah.
on this.
That's fine.
We can do that then, that's fine. Let's see, what else do I have here? Non-CBA insurance discussion, I believe we started that last time. In your packet on page 63, you'll see a breakout of costs. I handed out a packet for you that outlines the 2 plans and the benefits. the decision is to either leave it the way it is or change the plan. If the plan is changed, then you'll have everybody in the building on the same plan for next year. If the plan remains the same, obviously, this one's going to be the different one.
Well, my position is clearly, it has been the goal of numerous boards ever since I've been here, to get everybody on the same plan. We now have an opportunity to do that. The new plan for the teachers and the paras is an absolutely wonderful plan. If you go down and look through that, there's really not many changes. So yes, they had an office visit, co-pay of $5, that'll go up to $20. As far as I'm concerned, that's still too low. But that's just me. It encourages going to the doctors too much. So, I mean.
Can I make a motion then?
Yeah, I make a motion that we change the administrative director's benefit comparison to the proposed, I can't read it in the dark. The
AB
proposed
20.
AB 20.
AB 20, so that everybody's on the same program.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, 5-0.
Okay, on page 64 is really just for your information at this point. You wanted the cost for the crossing guard. You can see that it's 1 hour a day. There's no benefits or anything attached to it, so it's a really minimal cost for the year, so.
This is just for the morning? Or
It is for the afternoon.
This is for the afternoon.
This is for the afternoon.
So this is continuing, and we already have our afternoon crossing guard.
We have it now, but it's not in your budget for next year.
I think it is.
And is the current gentleman still doing a fine job and going to stay on?
I'll let Principal Daypre answer that.
I'm sorry, I was asking him a question. What was your
How
question?
is the crossing guard working out?
Oh, he's fantastic.
Okay.
He's
willing to
He's
continue?
fantastic.
Yeah, he stays there the whole hour.
Yeah, he's,
And he
yeah.
I always
Very
ask,
much in
like,
favor of continuing.
He is
I-
very much invested in that commitment.
I just,
he's
you know,
willing to
for-
get out there in front of Route 4 and stop traffic. Just like that.
God bless him.
He's a little more bold than I am, and I got a uniform on,
Right.
so.
And he waits for the bus to come. I mean, he's not required to. He waits for the last bus to come back.
I see him.
Okay, strategic planning discussion.
I've got a couple more, actually.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, a couple of things that aren't on your list. I also handed out a request, a parent request, as a student that notified us that they've moved out of town, has a student in the first grade, and would like permission to have that student finish the remainder of the school year.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I got one more here. Let me just write that down.
Can I ask one point of clarification on that?
Yes.
That notification to that parent comes from you, right? Not
Yeah,
from-
I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that. Food service, we've got the RFPs, and would you like me to set up a presentation for June 2nd, which is your next board meeting? And if so, what presentation would you like to see? We've had Fresh Picks and the Abbey Group express interest. In the past, the last board had picked Fresh Picks after they did all of their presentations. I think it would be a good thing to have them, whichever you choose, or both, to come in with final cost, answer final questions, whatever you might have for them. So what's your pleasure? Would you like one group to come in, or both groups to come in, or how would you like to proceed on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, with it the same two groups?
Yeah, Fresh Picks and the Abbey Group. Abbey Group was the upstate Vermont one, and Fresh Picks ultimately was the
So
one that was.
you're proposing that they actually physically come in here and do a presentation for us?
I'm not saying that the whole cooking presentation like we've done last time, but I think that the questions on staffing, on budgeting, on where, I mean, the numbers are, obviously, we're a year later, so I think it would be good for the board and for them to make sure that you're comfortable with whoever you're selecting, if you're gonna go in that direction.
So, the previous
What kind of
boards,
things are in that presentation? Do they bring like a sample menu? Do they bring?
they have, right? So
I don't mean like the physical food. I
No,
mean
but they
like a
have.
list of what they present on their,
In the
as their
past,
options.
in the past, when the board was looking at a few different vendors, we did have some food presentations. They came in, they did food, they did menus, they did the whole 9 yards. And then the Fresh Picks was the one that the last board had felt was above and beyond the other one. So what I'm suggesting at this point is, if that's still the way you want to go, for them to come in with final costs, take care of all of the financial aspects, any questions you have on the kitchen, the facilities, whatever you might have, because ultimately you're going to have to make a decision.
Well, I assume they're probably gonna have to relook at the kitchen and stuff like that, because it is, a year and a half later. Are they going to want to do a walkthrough again, or?
If you want, like I said, one or both, I'm going to call them up and encourage them to do whatever they need to do to get you a final packet and answer all of your final questions, because I think we're very rapidly approaching that time.
I'm only interested in the financial ends of it. I don't need a full blunt. The last food thing, it was wonderful. Only Dave and I were here. We couldn't even have a real meeting. And we pigged out. It was excellent. I can tell you both people did a very good job.
I was here for it, I just wasn't a board member.
I'm sorry?
I said I was here for it, I just wasn't a board member at the time.
That's true.
So did you get to
Yes.
eat or not?
I did not, because I didn't know there was a food presentation, so I'd eaten before I came, but I was there.
To me, what's more important, because it's very easy to present and everything is positive, and you don't know what really isn't true. So, and I'm not saying that I do more than you, I'm just saying I went out to 2 of the Fresh Picks and 1 of the other. So I went Fresh Picks, I went to, for instance, Dover High School and Kingston Elementary, and got permission from the business directors to go into the school and look at it. I was very impressed, I really was, and so I just, my interest is, at that point, Fresh Picks would come in and guarantee us that they would break even, on paper. And that is very important. So I'm curious, we have less students now. Is that going to hold up? So that's where my interest is. And I should, we can ask each for names of schools where we can go check.
I assume that we're all gonna wanna see Fresh Picks come in with numbers, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I guess my only question is, do we want the numbers from the other one as well?
I think it's only fair, since we put out an RFP.
Kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah, I think that's the reason for getting, in a year and a half, things can change.
Yep. So,
And they were a growing company, the other one.
Yeah,
I can't
right, so
remember the
maybe
name of it,
things
was
have
a
been-
growing company at the time and looking to expand, so maybe their numbers might be a little bit better. You never know.
So bring in both groups.
Yeah, please. But just as a, like you said, just as a, they don't need to bring in food. I mean, if they want to, that's great, but.
I'll take food.
yeah.
I have a question for you. Would it help to get a copy of the meeting where they did the
Presentation.
last time?
Well, yes and no, I mean, because things, it would help, if you could see the setup and stuff like that, I don't know how, you probably could, because I think you were set up over here. I guess the only thing is, though, is that the numbers and stuff like that will probably have
I'm just
changed,
talking,
but.
would it help anybody to see the other?
I would say if anyone's interested in seeing that, we'll get them in touch with you.
Let me know and
Yep.
I can make a
Yep.
copy. Okay.
That'd be great, thank you.
Dave really liked the food.
So if I,
Set that up for June 2.
Out of like all.
When are we gonna shoot for that?
For what?
What meeting for that?
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
June 2nd, we will get 2 estimates.
Yep.
2 for
Yep,
service,
I'll,
right?
I'll bring
DC.
both of those.
Okay, thank you.
Bring both of those. The only other piece I have for tonight is just an update on the principal search committee. We had 18 applicants. We've got 7 that we're bringing in next Tuesday for the committee to meet with and do initial interviews. And the one thing I forgot to write down the date. Do you remember, Bree, the date that we had said for the finalists? Was that June 8th, or did we change that?
That sounds right.
I'm trying to remember, I think it was June
It's in the
8th.
back seat of my truck.
Um,
I didn't bring it in because I didn't think I
It's
needed
on
it.
the 1st. June 1st was one in,
Oh, yeah, Sharon would know.
June 1st, we had second interviews.
okay.
And then
It was either the 7th or
The 7th or the 8th.
June 6th, we were doing visits, and then June 8th, we were going to have the finalists into our district for an evening for parents, and also for final interviews with the school board. And I'd like to kind of earmark that as a board meeting. It's not a board meeting night for you, but if...
What's the date again?
It's
Sorry.
Wednesday, June 8th.
June 8th, thank you. Love you, day.
We could schedule that in, that would be helpful.
What time?
Well, we're setting up, I want to do it probably like one in at maybe 5:30 and one in at 6:30 for the parent forum, and then have the board meeting after that with both of them individually.
It's the second Wednesday.
Does that work for people? Does that work for you?
What was the time? 5:30?
We're tentatively looking at something like a 5:30 start for, give them about 45 minutes to an hour for the public, 5:30 for one, 6:30 for the other, and then have them interview in front of the school board after that,
Separately.
separately.
So you're
Or a
thinking-
debate.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That's what they made the school board members do.
No,
If you
separately.
did 7:30 to 8 and then 8 to 8:30 or something like that, is
Yeah.
a half an hour enough for us to,
That's up to you.
I think that's probably plenty.
Okay.
I will try to be here for the 5:30. I cannot guarantee.
Well, that's going to be the parent forum piece of it, so. Okay. And
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. I'm going to throw it right back to you to lead us into the strategic planning discussion.
All right, strategic planning discussion. This is just an example of something that I've been through in the past in the Shaker Regional School District, and it was a very, strategic planning, it depends on how much time and what you want to get out of it. If it's a goal setting, it can be, not so time consuming. You could do a board retreat, take 2, 3, 4, 5 hours and come out with decent goal setting. If you're going through a complete strategic planning session, the one that I've got in front of you here from Shaker Regional, this was a contracted service. We had a facilitator come in, ran the whole process. We had the administrators within the district each pick one of these different areas: facilities, communication, community partners, and so on. And then they held meetings for approximately a month with any community members, staff members, parents, anybody that wanted to be interested in that. They hashed out all the strengths, the needs, did a SWOT analysis, and ultimately narrowed it down to action plans. And then those individual groups reported back to the school board and presented what they came up with. And then the final product was this. And it was what you see in here is basically what it is, with all of the mission statement, the beliefs, the 5-year plan, and all of the action plans. And then from there, this is what was leaned on very heavily for 5 years in each of those areas. It was brought to the budget committee. It was utilized to, for budgeting every single year. And every year at the end, the board would go through and go down and see where they're at, which action plans were done, which were in progress, and which didn't make sense anymore after a couple of years. And it just held everybody's feet to the fire, and it organized the process. And instead of just saying, we need curriculum improvement or we need communication improvement, ultimately, after the strategic plan, there were 12 or 15 areas, action plans that were put in place to actually make headway on that. So that's just an example that I have. I know it's done a lot of different ways. Like I said, if you're going through a true strategic plan, You're probably looking at anywhere from 4 to 5 months, 4 to 6 months to really pull it off. And the good part of having an outside facilitator come in is they aren't biased at all. They're going to come in, they're going to do a brainstorming session, they're going to get all the feedback from anybody that wants to provide input on things that are going really well and things that are going really awful, and then, again, come up with your 4, 5, 6, 7 categories that need attention. And normally there's something to do with, communication or culture, facilities, curriculum, leadership, SAU services, those types of things, and then ultimately, letting that individual group to have their own meetings, their own brainstorming, their own arguments and debates, and then ultimately weeding it down to, like I said, 12 to 15 action plans that you can make improvements on. That's just one way.
Do you have any idea, like, what the facilitator would cost, ballpark?
Well, you're probably, I'm guessing, by the time you do the night meetings and you do the Saturday kickoff and you do the whole 9 yards, you're probably looking anywhere between 10 and 20,000. Somewhere in that ballpark.
Do you have any comments on this?
Thank you for finding this. This is really,
That's good.
really cool, actually. I like that it's broken out by focus areas. I think that's really helpful.
I'd like to discuss, and maybe not at this point, maybe we can think on it, but a little bit more discussion on bringing in a facilitator, because I know for me, I know nothing about capital improvement and looking at some of these things, and these aren't what I would have thought of as capital improvement, but if you look at them and you think about them, it makes sense.
Yeah, how I've seen it done in the past is to get the community together and really think about what your mission is going to be and those types of things. And then brainstorming, what are the categories that really need our attention? And you'll pare it down from communication to tone of building to discipline systems to facilities to, everything goes up on the board. And then after you get 50 or 60 things up on the board, you start categorizing. And then you narrow those categories down into, like I said, facilities and communication and whatever technology, whatever rises to the top.
And inviting Cole Brown to be part of this with us.
Yeah, I think, if you do it, the more people you can get involved, the better, because ultimately, it's a wonderful document to take to the public after it's done and say, this is what you came up with. I didn't do it self-serving. You came up with this. This is what everybody, the community, the budget committee, the school board, the staff, everybody, the parents, that's what you came up with. And that's why we're coming to you during budget season or whatever it is and asking for certain things, because that's what you said we, ultimately through the process, you said we need. It's a good process. It's long. It's cumbersome.
I think it's a great idea, honestly. And I like the idea of doing it like on a Saturday where you can publicize it and have citizens come in and talk about what they want to do on it, and it would really get a lot of involvement, I think, because there are a lot of people who are concerned about the way things are going and what they think is a priority. And to have it all up there all at once, I think that would be
Certainly
really
seems to mesh
helpful.
with a lot of the priorities we put forth in our goals meeting as well.
Sure, yeah.
Communication and
Sure.
strategy. So if we're, probably the first step then would be maybe, well, is this something we want to pursue? I guess that's maybe.
I think,
the first step.
I think a lot of us say we need a 3 to 5 year plan, and it's one of our goals.
So the first step in moving that forward would be what, probably trying to find a facilitator? And
Well, I can
and get
cer-
some estimates?
Yeah, I can certainly get you some estimates on available facilitators, so you'll have a better idea on what you're talking about. I'm guessing at 10 to 20, so
Right.
I can certainly get you estimates on that. And timeframes too, so.
That'd be great, yeah.
Now, is this was 2007 to 2012. They make another 5 year right afterwards?
Actually, I'm trying to remember what year I was over there. Was I on this one? Yeah, I was on this one too. There was one before this too. I was on the one from 2002 to 2007, and then the 2007, I think that was I'm trying to remember what year I left there. But they had a 5-year one before then. What they did after 2012, I have no idea. I don't know.
Any other questions on this? How much time? Next week, next meeting, or a month from now?
I can try to do it for next meeting.
We'll make a decision from there, I suppose.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the club committee list. Somebody make a motion for that, please.
Motion to accept the club committee list as proposed by the clubs committee.
Second. Any discussion on this?
What page was it again?
82.
83. Yeah, 82 and 83.
Okay, no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, thank you. After-school program lease.
There was a question about the after-school program and if we had a lease, and I thought I asked a very simple question, do we have a lease? Which turned into not a very simple question. I think that they have had an agreement for many, 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 many years, but I don't believe that we've ever had a lease. We've got a lease that that down in Nottingham for a similar program. I think it would be a good idea to have a lease for next year, so if that's the direction you want me to go in, I can draft up a similar contract and bring it back for your review.
What was the current arrangement? Do they pay us for the use of it?
Yeah, it's something in the ballpark of $100 a month and a cost per student.
I think I'd be in favor of having a lease written up for that.
I think so, and also to ensure that they will follow the policy and the guidelines.
Right.
Yeah.
all that, So,
Yeah, this is one of those agreements that are a little old school that just has been happening for years. But it's probably not a bad idea to.
Okay, absent objection, we'll see that. Well, what have you all been waiting for, the school start time discussion? So, you had mentioned wanting to make a motion for reconsideration, so now would be the time to do that.
Like I said, I want to change my vote to, and if anybody else does, that's fine. If not, I just want it on record that because it would still pass even if I was.
Make a motion to reconsider then.
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the start time.
Okay. Second?
second.
All right. Any discussion on this? I know that we have the head of the PTA who would like to speak, if that's okay.
NTA.
Sorry, NTA, Northwood Teachers Agreement. Is there, anybody mind if she gets up and gives us some feedback?
Please do. Bottom. Yeah.
I'm a little short. So we did, after hearing that you wanted to reconsider the start time, I'm just here to speak on behalf of the Teachers Association. We did bring it back to our membership after receiving the letter when you said 7:45 to 2:15. So when we heard it was reopened, we had another discussion about it through our membership. Just some factors we would like you to consider as you're having this conversation tonight. The tardies on students with our current start time at 7:55 a.m. is approximately 15 students late every single day. I went through the tardy log in the office. Some of it is 8 students a day, some of it's 22 students a day, some of it's 10. So on average, it's about 15 students a day. if the 7:45 to 2:15 is a permanent that you're going to stick with, just consider making those bad weather calls timely through the winter, because we do have a lot of staff members here that have a 45 to 50-minute commute. I can think of, past Concord and Henniker and things like that, so just kind of keep that in mind. The association could support the 10-minute shift, but we want it also understood that it would negatively affect some of our staff members here, whether they're going to return or not for the next year. They have expressed concerns about daycare issues and other family and personal issues that may prohibit them from signing their contracts and coming back for next year. And as an end result from, I think, the Teachers Association, the majority of the staff does prefer keeping the time either the same as this year or shifting the times 5 minutes earlier. So that's kind of the discussion we have. We're very neutral about it. We want to work with you. So I'm happy to obviously listen to your discussions and just keep those in consideration while you make your decision. Thank you.
Thanks. So, the question I have for the people who want to reconsider it is that we have a problem, right? If we just reconsider it and set the school time back to what it is today, that problem remains. Do we have a proposal for how to get around that?
So here's my thing. Again,
Yeah.
as I said in the last meeting, we don't have a problem. And I understand that the Co-Brown students are our students. We do not have this problem. We do not own the company. We pay the company for a service. This is not our problem to fix. I just don't think that, and that's,
I feel like they're
again,
putting the problem
I
on
have
us
a
to
50-minute
fix.
drive one way, and I think of these things, and that's what's been in my head. I haven't gone on Facebook. I haven't listened to parents. This is all just me thinking about this, and my work wouldn't come to me and say, we're going to change the time because the bus can't get here on time. It wouldn't happen. This is not our problem. That's just my feeling.
So, for me to respond, I mean, regardless, I don't think it's constructive to lay blame on anyone and say it's anyone's problem. I mean, it's the community's problem, right? It's our problem is in all of our problems right now, I think, not the bus companies. Not just the bus companies. I mean, they were part of it, we were part of it, the Co-Brown was part of it. It's something to say, we'll just do it, right, fix this somehow, but looking at reality, it's just not gonna happen, right? We're still gonna have kids that are waiting at Co-Brown for, 10 minutes more.
So my argument to that is that it's high school kids. So what, they got home 10 minutes later, they're high school kids. I mean, now we're telling younger kids and parents that have younger kids where the stress level is a lot more, because you gotta get them up, you gotta get them dressed, you gotta feed them, you gotta make them their lunches, you gotta do a lot of stuff now 10 minutes earlier. I know it doesn't include all the buses, only certain bus routes it does, but I mean, you're adding added stress to younger kids and younger parents to get the kids ready, when it's just high school kids being home 10 minutes later, and they're stuck at Co-Brown, and they're outside, right there, waiting for the bus, see them waiting for the bus.
Causing trouble.
I mean, are they causing trouble? If they're causing trouble, I'm sure the teachers and Mr. Smith will take care of the issues that are causing trouble, but they're waiting for the bus to get on the bus to home 10 minutes later. Those kids are not doing extracurricular activities, because if they were doing extracurricular activities, they would be going somewhere, they're just going home. So, my eyes, if they're 10 minutes late, they're 10 minutes late. They're high school kids. They probably don't mind. Probably if you polled them, they probably wouldn't care. So, I think it's more stress for us as a community at the elementary level for the parents and kids.
So, who cares?
Well, I called up Headmaster Smith and I asked him about the end of the day, and he said that if the bus was there about 2:45, he's got a first wave and a second wave.
Mm-hmm.
The first wave comes and they leave, and then the Northwood buses come in the second wave, and 2:45 is like when they would roll the second buses, the second wave. And I also talked to Deb D'Alessandro, and she gave me some times here. And the arrival times that she's looking at are 2:50, 2:52, 2:50, 2:54, 2:51, 2:54. So you'll see that, you know, it's a little bit of a day. Headmaster Smith expressed some concern after like the 2:50 area, which some of the time our buses, especially in the wintertime, get over there 2:55, 3 o'clock, closer to that. My recommendation from the beginning was if we can back it up 5 minutes, and then see if there's any kind of restructuring at all that we can do in dismissal time here to get the kids out on the road quicker to help with that. It's the transition time from the time the buses leave here till the buses get there. So obviously, in wintertime, these 2:52s, 2:54s could go to almost 3 o'clock. 5 minutes it's not going to solve the problem, but it will certainly help. 10 minutes is going to solve the problem of getting to Co-Brown on time. So it's up to the board to wrestle with that.
I think you're right. 10 minutes will alleviate the problem. I think five minutes would actually solve the problem in a way, because I've seen the buses, and yeah, I've seen the 250s and 255s, but I've seen also the buses off there at 2:45. I've seen the early times too. So, I think 5 minutes as a compromise would be would be great.
And in this email from Deb D'Alessandro, she gave me the times of, like I said, 2:50, 2:52, 2:54, 2:54, 2:52, and said, hope this helps support 10 minutes I've asked for and was originally approved by the board. So she's asking for the 10 minutes.
It befuddles me to understand how anybody could say that this is not our problem. We are the school board of Northwood of all 700 kids, or 600 kids. It is our problem. And to me, it should be addressed by a meeting somehow of Dr. Godomsky or someone from the board. I am more than willing to have Dr. Godomsky do it. Somebody from Co-Brown and Deb D'Alessandro. They should meet, thrash this out, and come to us with a recommendation. They're the professionals in particular, as to how to really resolve the problem. This keeps coming up. It's not going to go away unless we come to a meeting of the minds between the two schools, both of which handle all of our students except for one. And I just think we should let them meet, talk, and then come to if they can agree on 5 minutes, fine. If they absolutely feel it's 10 minutes, bring that to the board and let us approve it.
Well, other than the board member being there, I believe that's what happened with Deb D'Alessandro and.
Yeah, I think I can give you that recommendation right now. I mean, Deb wants 10 minutes. I think Dave would lean towards 10 minutes because he obviously wants the buses there on time. And where I'm sitting with all of everything involved, I'm thinking 5 minutes and it's going to be close. So I mean, that's the recommendation. And
so what's the recommendation, 10 minutes or 5 minutes?
I'm recommending 5.
You're recommending 5.
And one thing you also got to consider too is the release of the students here has improved so much. I mean, at the beginning of the year, it was like, okay, who's who, where's what? Oh, people still in the hallway, right? It's almost getting down to a science. They're leaving at 2:29, 2:30 every single day. So that's a huge improvement from the beginning of the year. So I think that was another thing we can consider, that, right, we even helped within our own school to get the times down. And I think 5 minutes is a great compromise compared to the 10.
But I would encourage the board to make a decision tonight on this, because we do have, teachers that we would like their contracts back, and obviously if anybody needs to make a decision to leave, we would like to be posting positions and doing interviews as quickly as possible to fill those positions as well. So, I think we need to make a decision.
My question is, what if we reject this? What if we say no change? Then what happens?
If the board were to decide, leave it the way it is, no change, then what we would do is do everything we can at dismissal time to see if there's anything we can tweak. I mean, it's.
That's what I'm saying, like
We've
this,
gotten a crossing guard out front. She asked for a
crossing
crossing
guard,
guard.
yep,
We got the
that's-
crossing guard out
yep.
front. So do we take the crossing guard and make them a babysitter at Cole Brown?
so I'm saying that this transportation company is under contract.
Yep.
So it's not like they can just quit if we don't give them their 10 minutes.
No, they can't, but just, I know that they get pressure from Co-Brown every time they roll in at 3 o'clock, because obviously you've got high school kids hanging around there for, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
And then that pressure comes to us. I mean, they are calling us all the time, and we are releasing we have it logged every single day up through the end of April, 2:30 every day with a few exceptions, because they are on us to make sure that we're not delaying them getting to Co-Brown.
So what are you hearing from teachers on a compromise with the 5 minutes? Is that acceptable? Do they not? Maybe I should ask the teachers.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Can I-
Lauren
can I-
spoke.
She said
That's-
that.
that's
She said
okay?
what they're, yeah. That's what they're-
If that's Bob's recommendation, I'm comfortable going with the 5 and seeing what happens.
This
I
is
don't know
one
if
of
that
the-
helps with what Barbie wanted to do, but
This is one of those decisions that no matter what you make, if you leave it the way it is, you're going to make a group of people very happy. If you change it to 10 minutes, you're going to make a different group of people very happy. And in the middle at 5 minutes, you're really not going to make anybody happy, but at least it's going to help the situation out a little bit. I mean,
It's not a good negotiation when everybody leaves upset, right?
yeah. I mean, I don't see a solution here that is going to be the magic bullet that makes everybody happy. I don't.
so it's
see
either
that
make a
happening.
whole bunch of people unhappy and make a whole bunch of people very
Well, like I
happy,
said,
or you just
5 minutes is going to make it very, very close to meeting your needs. Very close. In inclement weather, it's going to be an issue.
Inclement weather should be an issue
inclement
all the
weather is
time.
always an issue.
On
though.
a good day, it could be on time for, 2 out of the 3 buses. It might be a couple of minutes over. It's going to be close.
Everybody,
And I gotta say one more thing. The only thing you're actually physically fighting is minutes, is wait time. It's not salary, there's no money going anywhere. All it is just time. That's all we're really voting on, is just time. So I think 5 minutes, so I make.
Well,
a
you do have a
proposal.
little supervision time over at
supervision,
Co-Brown.
yeah.
But they're also contracted to stay there, so it's not like they're getting paid extra to do that.
So am I hearing 5 minutes,
Make a proposal.
Barbie? So we have I'm just curious, so we'll have the vote and then redo it, right? So 5 minutes, what do you think, Tim?
I really don't care. My only concern is, or my only desire is, to not revisit this in 6 months. This has been ongoing for a long time.
We'll
and-
revisit it next year at this time.
Make a motion for that.
We'll
That
revisit
we'll
it.
not revisit this ever
We'll
again.
revisit this in March
so-
before the contract's
I
up.
just feel 5 minutes and it's going to be revisited. That's what I think.
It might well.
It could
Well,
be.
we can vote to have it not revisited until March.
I'm not so sure you can do that.
Yeah, you can.
Until March, yeah.
Yeah, until
I think, no,
March,
this is
yeah.
a decision for this year. I'm sorry, for next year, maybe we'll change it again,
Yeah.
but this is the decision this year. Yeah.
So the other consideration it might come down to, if the 5 minutes is tried and it doesn't work, the other consideration is us at this school releasing students from classes 5 minutes earlier.
No,
so
there
that
is
the
no
bus
reason.
leaves
No.
5 minutes earlier.
Why should
and that's
our
going to be something that
students-
falls to this building
No.
as another alternative.
I don't want our kids to lose 5
I don't
minutes of
either.
instructions.
I don't either.
No.
No, but anything we can do to make dismissal more efficient and quick would be good, obviously.
And there needs
But-
to be an understanding that the beginning of the year is going to be rough. It's new for everyone.
We
some
hit it
of
hard
this-
this year. I mean, even by the end of September, we were on it for 2:30. We were on it.
And a lot of this is on parents too, calling at, 2:00 in the afternoon to dismiss their kids who are supposed to go on the bus, and that kid thinks they're supposed to be on the bus, so they get on the bus, and, so a lot of this falls on this
But I will say that at the
parent.
beginning of the year, there was a lot of confusion with those types of things. And as the year progressed, I think that, the building administration has done a really nice job at taking care of that, at educating the parents that, you can't call 5 minutes before and expect us to pull them off the bus. And the crossing guard certainly was a big help in getting the buses out onto the road, so.
We released 400 kids of elementary age in a span of like 6 minutes. I mean, it really is.
Quite impressive. And they don't run. We yell at them when they run.
Yeah.
All right, let's vote on the motion to reconsider. All in favor of reconsidering? Yes?
Yeah.
To reconsider, to change to the new time. Right. All right. So let's have a motion to change the school time by 5 minutes.
All right, motion to change the school by 5 minutes.
Earlier, 5 minutes later.
7:50 would be the new start time.
Yeah, the start time would be 7:50.
2:20.
2:20 would be dismissal.
Second.
7:50 to 2:20. That's the new school start time and dismissal time for next year. Any further discussion on this?
Second.
Yes, Barbie second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nothing, motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you. It's 9:10. Did anybody want a break?
Yes.
Plow through. All right, let's take 5 minutes. Next on the agenda is the CIP discussion.
I thought that's what that was.
That was
Strategic planning?
Oh,
We have
CIP.
sorry.
We have CIP
That's right.
inside that.
The CIP could be part of the strategic plan, I think.
Okay.
But we started talking about the CIP before this, and Scott said he's gonna bring us some examples. I assume this is what it's in our.
Well, this is just an example on, how you might account for it. The CIP, you should think about, obviously, facilities is the major one, but there are other things that you might want to put into a capital improvement plan for long-term planning. So if you're going to develop a capital improvements plan, it might be an offshoot of your facilities committee, looking at the buildings, looking at what your big ticket items are going to be for 3 to 5 years, or even 5 to 10 years. Mapping that out and then having a meeting with the town. So, I mean, ideally, what you want is the school and the town to kind of marry their capital improvement plans, so both entities aren't asking for huge ticket items in the same year.
Now, I understand the facilities part of it, but what about like the technology part of it? Like, because I was thinking of that as like a
Yeah, some
big
peop-
ticket item that you sort of spread out, and like the $25,000 that you had put in the budget for curriculum development or something like that, like.
Yeah, I mean, it really needs to be big capital improvements. I mean, technology, if you're going to do, let's say you're going to do a $100,000 project and you need that 1-year jump start, then you might want to put it in your capital improvement plan. If it's a ongoing, $50,000 a year for technology improvements, then, I mean, that should eventually slide into your budget and be in there. So it's just a matter of discussing. A lot of times it's roofs, it's parking lots, it's grounds, it's boilers, air conditioning. I mean, the things that you're going to be looking at that are going to be $100,000, $200,000, $500,000.
Doors that we seem to be doing a lot with lately.
Thought I lost my phone. It was on the floor under my desk chair.
How does the board want to move forward with this? This is the sample sheet, I assume, that Scott had?
Yeah, that's just one that was put together for.
So it sounds like there could be a lot of overlap between this and the strategic plan as well.
Oh, sure.
Right? We want to move forward with this independently of the strategic plan, or try to fold them in together?
Well, I'm wondering, like you said, if this shouldn't be an offshoot of the facilities committee, because if you're looking at these types of things already, these are discussions that you can have in that committee as to, you know, I know the roof was leaking again, although we had the roof done 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Tim, do you remember?
It was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, and then.
A portion of it, not all of it.
Right, but looking at that, and then that same portion, I believe, was the portion that was leaking. You know, so looking at the whole roof and thinking, you know,
Well, some places will do like a 20-year cycle, so they know that their parking lot, they need to get repaved, let's just say, every 7 years. So, you know, they'll map it out 7 years and put that cost in there. They'll know when their roofs need to be replaced, and they'll put that in there. They need to know that a boiler has only X number of years, and they'll put that in there. And then obviously you keep revisiting your capital improvement plan. So if you've got a 20-year plan, you know what you're going to do in the 3 to 5 years, and then as you get out 10 years, 15 years, you got to redo it again, because things go and things happen. So.
and does it ever work like the same way, say, because I think it's the last 2 years, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, like the HVAC system has been on as a warrant article for the town, and it's been voted down. Like, well, 1 year it was voted in, but only a certain amount, and then that it came back too much, and then this year it was voted down, I believe.
No, this year it was finally approved.
They did vote it for it, but like something like that, if we put that in at the same time as the town did, like with this type of stuff getting a lower bid, does it usually work like that, or
Well,
is that more of?
That's where
of
it's
a-
good for the town to work with the school district, because if you've got the town that's looking to build a $2 or $3 million town hall, and the school is looking for a $2 to $3 million building project, you might want to have that 5 years apart. Instead of, oh geez, the school's doing this, oh, well, we're asking for another $2 million on top of that. I mean, you've got to kind of place that out.
But also maybe trying to work together to lower the costs of some things, like, that's what I was worried too, is
right.
like, I know about like something like that.
Nottingham's got a capital improvement plan that they've worked with the town and the school district. If you'd like to see that, we can bring that to you. And
Yeah, I'd like to definitely have something before we go to the town, at least written down as to what we're thinking, right? Just as far as, and then go
Well,
to
I'd
the
like
town.
a
then
copy
we
of
can
what the
talk to them.
town, is that online or anything, do you know, the capital improvement plan? Because you said you guys just worked on that, right?
No, I said we had one, and then for a couple of years, nothing was done, and talk was in the planning board to go back and revisit it and update it.
Okay.
I would talk to the planning board.
Yeah, it's definitely a planning board issue. They're in charge of it. To me, the first step should be for us to set a threshold, and 10,000, 25,000, whatever we want. And the second step, before it ever gets to the facilities committee, would be to go out to those people who would have input. So Tom Sayers, Mrs. Daypre, Mr. Robert, kitchen staff, and have them submit to us being the facilities committee or the board, whatever the decision is, any ideas that they have. The town tried to get this school to do that 3 to 4 years ago, and it was really disappointing. I mean, it came up several times by me, and we got nowhere with the school, just absolutely nowhere.
So I think we're ready to do that now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we're all on board with that.
And I guess the thing, that's why I was asking about the technology part of it, but Bob was saying that it's more of like a facilities thing, because that's where I wasn't
It
sure.
depends on what you set your number at, right? I mean, 10,000 seems low to me, and if you do that, you're gonna run into technology stuff. I mean, technology stuff's gonna.
But I guess
need
that's
that.
where I'm looking too, is like, if we say we're only gonna spend like $50,000, if that's our threshold, I guess I'm looking at it more of, when is our roof going to need to be done? And that's gonna probably cost us more than $50,000. I mean, I don't know. No, okay.
No, it's not gonna rip everything up.
I mean, the lower you set the amount to, the more we're gonna get, right? Like, it's almost like a filter, right? You set a real high number, and you're gonna get 2 or 3 things, replace the building at some point,
I think
things
the
like that.
town's was $10,000.
10,000, okay, yeah, you said something
I
lower.
think
you'll
it
get
was.
much more.
What, do you have any idea what Nottingham's is?
I'm not sure they set a threshold, but it's new stuff to your budget. I mean, so even if
Yes.
you said $10,000
Okay,
for a threshold, that doesn't mean that Steve Roberts or even Tom is gonna turn in everything over $10,000. If it's already in your budget, if you've already got that going through, it's for new anticipated stuff.
But like academic programs fit in there then? They're not in our budget, and they're like $50,000, right?
I suppose you could put like programmatic adoptions in there or something like that.
So I guess I'm not understanding what this threshold is. So, okay, so I'm not understanding the whole thing, because when you were saying set a threshold, when you said that, I thought that was the most that we would be spending.
No, that's the least.
Right.
Okay.
So we
that's,
don't want them.
that's why I wasn't understanding what was being said, and
we
that's
don't-
why.
I would not want them to come to us with anything less than whatever we set the threshold.
Okay.
And I would not want them to come to, there are some items that should, in a normal, everyday budgeting process, should just go in the budget. And that does not include, that would include technology or something like that. It would not, what would be included in a CIP are things like roof, new building, tractor, new tractor,
So you're saying like physical
paving. There was another one if we are not going to go with kitchen, that kitchen really needs help. Things like that.
Cafeteria.
Sorry.
So if you were gonna do something, I know last year when we did the wish list, when it was my first time going through the wish list, we looked at the main office, the restructuring of the main office to make it
Something like
more
that
safe.
could
That
go
came
in
in
there,
at a
yes.
$35,000 estimate for an overhaul of making that safe, compacted, all of that. That's something that would be part of this programmatic.
Those kind of
thing.
things, yeah.
Let's say you were gonna retrofit all of the outside doors and the office for swipe cards and for cameras and the whole 9 yards for safety. It's gonna be $50,000. That should go in your CIP.
Okay. Now I understand the threshold, because I was thinking threshold as that's the most we're going to spend,
No.
and that's why I wasn't.
opposite.
Yeah,
Do we want to
okay.
ask our facilities committee to come up maybe first with that list of items that would potentially go in
Anything
here?
over
Obviously, it's going
10.
to change,
Right.
over time, but
Because we already need an RFP for 5, so are we saying anything like over $10,000, over $15,000, or just saying long-term, over the next 5 years, 10 years? I mean,
Well, it's really looking at everything. I mean, if you're doing a CIP, I would suggest doing a minimum of 10 years. And looking at, I mean, as the facility committee's walking around, you know in the next 10 years, you're gonna have to do some roof replacements. You know that you're gonna have to look at your heating and ventilation, to make sure that there's a life cycle on that. That you're going to have to do some of those things. I don't know how long the gym floor has been there. At what point are you gonna have to completely rip it up, not resurface it, rip it up and do a new gym floor? I don't know.
That's where you burst a pipe.
So, I mean, when you're looking at that, you really need to look at it as it is a long-term capital improvement plan.
We also have that safety assessment that we just got back that has some suggestions about some longer-term safety feature things that this building needs to continue to do to enhance that aspect of the building.
So let's start with the list. Shane, would that be?
Yeah, I'm actually.
He's almost
kinda-
done with it.
I'm doing it.
You're,
working
done,
on it.
you're doing it now? All right, great. And then we'll look at the list, and then we can start thinking about
Yeah,
how we'll break it out over the years.
if you could send
Give me
out,
a date.
yeah, an email
You're the one that
to our
has the
major
tricky
players.
schedule.
Yeah, major players.
It's when me, Tom.
Yeah, you probably ought to set it like 10,000 and up.
Roberts.
You need
Yeah, well, I
Tom.
think common sense should prevail some of this stuff too, right? I mean,
It's
it's
the toughest one to match.
It is.
replacing a door here and there. I don't expect they're gonna
That's
do
not a
that.
capital improvement.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, if we're done with that for now,
Yeah, you can pick dates. We
do
can.
it offline. Parking lot items, anybody have anything on the parking lot items or school timeline they want to talk about?
Do we actually still have that list of the parking lot items?
Yeah, it's on the back of the capital improvement form. Parking lot is. Cafeteria ceiling, what do you know, it's right on there.
CRP plan.
Stipend list, you mean for co-curriculars? Is that what the stipend?
I think, was the stipend list supposed to be the committees?
The one we just looked at and approved tonight?
Yeah, but I think is that what that is for looking at that for next year, possibly adding the money?
Yeah, more money into it.
Oh, right.
Okay, so
Is
that
that
goes
what
along
that
with the
is?
moving drama and operating budget type thing, those kind of go together.
Is that what that was, though, the stipend list?
Could be.
Is that, I'm thinking that's what those two, yeah.
Yes.
And that needs to,
Now,
that will need to go to
the-
negotiations too.
The volleyball discussion that's been on there for a while, it has summer of 2016, so we're going into summer of 2016. Is that something that you want to?
So that was Mr. Dave's
Yes.
thing. So
Has it come up with the athletic committee?
nothing has come up with it. And I think at this point right now, with track taking over much of what's going on during the spring and stuff and the fall, I think we'll have to put that on the sideline for now. So.
Okay,
I'll remove it.
I'll move that off then.
We did the review of specific items, so we removed that off as well. First item. SBA update, that was, the facilities committee was gonna look at the requests they had for our field.
Yes.
We had to cancel that meeting.
Yeah, we had to cancel that
Okay,
meeting,
okay, so
but we did
that's
get
out.
some of it resolved already. It just, and now that I know that we have like $12,000 in there,
Okay, so.
we can definitely take care of
Bring it
this.
back, okay.
But that's, a lot of that money's already
Yeah, we just gotta
taken
figure it
with
out.
Thompson.
That's right now, but. What month is it? May?
May.
Doesn't feel like May. Graduation debts set. Surplus funds, we do it every week. Summer school proposals with board. Any idea what that's about?
Summer school, what?
Discussion of summer school proposals.
That would be for any summer staffing.
Is that something we need to get on?
Well, it's weird that it said then further down, it says summer school employment posted. The third from the bottom.
Right.
Or is that like for facilities?
We're kind of done with that. I mean, we posted the summer school positions that we've had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is just a list to remind us, make
Yeah,
sure we
yeah,
didn't forget anything.
but I'm just saying,
so
I
we're
think
good.
we've made the progress we need to on that. We might just have one bus monitor position that we need, that's new, that we might need to post.
Are those things, are you gonna bring it to us at some point to look at?
Do we need to look at those?
No, I don't know. I don't remember ever looking at summer school.
Just
No.
if there's staffing.
Yeah. Did we bring the list last
But there will be
year?
staffing, right?
Yeah, any
Was.
staffing needs to be approved
Okay. So when does that happen?
whenever it's ready.
I remember it last year.
They have to return their contracts back by.
June 30th. There's no date specified in their CBA when they have to come back. We recommend a date of mid-March, which is 2 weeks after they got them. I mean, mid-May, which is 2 weeks after they got them, but there is no specific requirements. They know that they have consequences imposed after June 30th per their contract for the new year, but we're trying to.
I would anticipate that after tonight would start.
We should get more. We have a bunch already. We do have a lot of them already.
For the next meeting.
If we go with this particular
Okay,
vendor.
any subcommittees meet
They
that
may
you
have
want to
gotten
write a
Yes.
report on
their quote.
briefly?
Oh, athletic committee,
Oh, I thought they did.
besides the volleyball getting
So, no,
next.
we can't
Um,
have $2,500 that
Oh.
I got the email about either yourself or Scott's gonna be on the athletic director committee.
Yep.
Has you guys chosen, because there was 5 applicants?
We're down to 4, if not 3.
Okay,
Just give us a date and a time, and one of us will be in the interviews.
okay.
So, okay. So whatever, I just want to make sure we can guarantee, because I know you guys are swamped with schedules, so I don't know if you guys have more openings than not.
As soon as you've got a suggested time, you let me know.
That's for what?
The athletic
AD
director,
AD interviews.
And who did we lose?
external candidates. We had 2 internal candidates and we had 3 external candidates. So as I did last year, I call all of the external candidates to let them know the nature of the position, the nature of the timing, how much it's funded, and what it really amounts to. And they let me know at that point whether they still want to be considered. Some people think it's a much bigger position and a much more fully funded position. So
My question was, did we lose somebody? Are
we lost an external candidate because of that phone call that I made, and I'm
No,
waiting.
what he's saying is,
Always a new
no,
position each
every year it has to be.
Oh, you're talking about the current
reconsidered.
AD versus having to
Yeah,
hire
there's
now?
no contract. There's-
So who's our current AD?
Mike Rieger.
Okay.
So every year, because of the way it's been run, every year we have to re-interview and post for all of our positions. So the athletic director and the fall coaches all were reposted, and we have to re-interview and re-nominate every year.
But Mike Brieger can
He applied.
okay.
Mike Brieger and Mike White were the 2 internal candidates that we had.
Okay.
And we have.
So is that the case for all the non-contract positions, basically? Every year they're redone?
Pretty much. Yeah.
With pulling that out of the contract, the CBA, does that still have to be that way, or can we make it different? We can-
No, personally, I think it's a little bit of overkill. I mean, if you've got somebody in a position, a co-curricular position that's doing, they are one-year contracts, yes. But if you've got somebody in a position that's doing a good job, to me, it's a little overkill to have to post their position every single year. I mean, you've
So
got
what makes
a
us-
couple of coaches that have been there forever that,
What makes us do that right now?
I believe it's been the past practice for as long as we've been here.
So there's
And the
nothing in the
reason-
CBA that says that we have to do that?
The reason that was given to me is because if we get new teaching staff in here or we get new employees, we want to be able to give them the opportunity to take on these new coaching positions and supplement their activity with us. And if we hire outside candidates and don't open that door for internal people, then we may lose people or not give opportunities that the staff would like to have to them.
If I remember correctly, part of the reason why it was brought up in the past was that you may have had somebody in a position that you didn't want in the position that had been in the position in the past, and the easy way out was, we're gonna post everything every year and interview everybody every year.
Instead of just not renewing your contract?
But now we pulled the athletic director out of the CBA, out of that section. That's what I'm saying is, like, I know it's a
That
yearly.
section only put like how much they got paid. I don't think it said anything else about that. We have to look.
Right,
at
but
it.
it was in with all of the other, athletic stuff. So now that it's pulled out of there, I'm wondering if you could look, we
Yeah,
can
I
look
think
at
that
that
was the
differently.
biggest push, is you had an athletic director that you didn't necessarily want in that position. And the easiest way to do it was to say, we're posting every position every year.
I see. So,
If you get,
so as a way to have the opportunity to switch without,
yeah,
if there's no candidates doing anything, right? If we had no candidates, then that would be bad.
but if you're doing evaluations of staff every year, then you shouldn't have to worry about that anyway, because if they're not doing an adequate job, then just, we don't renew the contract as a
Right.
co-curricular.
That seems like too much work.
Tell me about it. I'm in every interview.
It is a little bit too much work. That's
But
why
it is
we-
what it is right now. We
that's why we need a
I'm gonna
full-time
wait.
athletic director.
I'm gonna double check again tomorrow's Friday, with the other 2 candidates. One of the externals definitely wants in, so we definitely have 2 internals and an external. There's just one I haven't heard from. I'm gonna reach out to her tomorrow, and then we'll either interview 3 people or we'll interview 4 people. And once the athletic director is selected, then we can potentially involve the athletic director. Even though they wouldn't be starting until July 1, we can potentially involve the athletic director in the selections for the fall coaching positions.
Okay. Any other committees? Policy committee didn't meet?
We did not.
Okay, so that'll,
We're meeting this next week.
technology committee I think did meet, but once again, my meeting at work got changed, so it's overlaps it, so I was not able to attend. I apologize. Anything else? Any other interesting committee meetings?
Athletic positions.
As far as a committee meeting, though, I'm just going back to paving for a second. I think we should ask Ms. Gunter to take a copy or give the copy of the paving to Joe Gunter, so that he's aware that we said 2,500 and he has that approval. If we went with Road One paving, and that's certainly the way I'm leaning, we need to inform them that, to what we would be doing, and it says that under service, and that it's 3,700, not 2,500, and he has to go to the board, the select board, for approval of that.
Well, either that or we just pay the difference.
Either that or we pay the difference, yes, but I think we should first.
See if they will pay it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Bree and I were just having a sidebar conversation, and she thinks it's problematic.
Well, the board's decision, so.
Yes,
You can just bring it to them and see what they say.
Yeah, I can't imagine for 3,700 where we're reclaiming and paving and everything, that they're not going to approve that, but we should certainly give them the opportunity and then go from there.
Ultimately, though, I mean, whether we pay for it or the town pays for it, I mean, it's coming from the same place. It's still.
I
it's-
can
I
bring it to
don't
him, show him the
disagree.
quote,
I don't
and
disagree.
he
Yeah,
can
yeah.
bring it to the board, and
Yep.
they can make a decision.
It's all just paperwork at this point.
I'll let you know.
But we should know what their stance is before we
Yep, that's
discuss
fine.
it at the next
I
meeting.
have no problem bringing that to them. It's probably good. It's a good idea. Any future agenda items other than what I have on here so far is the, to go over the payroll policies for next agenda. We'll have the food service people come in, or the food service members come in. And we'll get hopefully some estimates for a strategic plan. Strategic planning facilitator. Then beyond that, the regular stuff. Anything else that we want to add for next meeting?
Not for the next one, but for maybe late July, early August. I would like to see, and I don't know if anybody else would, but like a technology update to know sort of what's going on in the school with our technology, if it's being used. So whenever it doesn't, interfere with Mr. Roberts' vacation or whatever.
You'll put that on the parking lot then, so that we remember to do that?
I don't know if it's a parking lot or just to make sure that it gets on it. Well, I want the invitation put out so that he knows ahead of time. Like I said,
Sure.
I don't want it to interfere if he's going on vacation or
Oh,
something.
just- yeah.
But I want the invitation out there. But I think that, we need to close out school first but
Yeah,
I'd
I know
like to
he's in the
sort
middle
of
of
know.
testing and stuff now,
Yeah,
too, so
I'd
that's
like
why
to
it's
know
up
how we're doing with the netbooks, who's
Yep.
using them, what's going on with it. And so just an update.
When could you ask him when he might be available? When would be a good time for him?
Yeah, are you thinking about doing it after the June 16th meeting when the school year's over, like
Yes.
beginning of the summer meetings?
Either July, July or August, whatever. Like I said, I don't want it to interfere if he's going on vacation or whatever, but after school is closed
How about just sometime this summer?
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything they want to put on? Maybe we'll have a quick meeting next time. You have anything?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So, graduation's coming up for 8th grade graduation, and and a lot of when Karen laughed about getting more involved in the community, for one of us maybe to be there at the graduation.
We're usually all there.
We're right there, okay. Or even say something. Get up and say something, where it's not like we're promoting the school board or anything like that. So I was just wanted to kind of nominate myself for that, just because
Can
me
you keep
being.
it short?
Oh, well, definitely short.
No
Because I'm in,
PowerPoint
I've
presentation,
taught
please.
these kids in DARE.
Yep.
I've taught them, I've coached them, and then and then representing the school
I'm
board
only
as
saying
well.
short because we were there last year and they
So,
it's
I'm
hot in that
just-
gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting the approval of the school board, if that was fine,
That
if
would
I
be
represented us
fantastic,
as
A speaker?
a speaker.
When do you want to come back with a proposal for that? For getting us into graduation somehow? Would
I
that
mean,
be-
yeah, I mean, we can add you to the agenda and we can have a school board address on there and whatever you guys, or whoever you want to have do it, or whatever you want to say, we can certainly add it into the agenda.
That
I
sound
mean,
good,
I think
everybody?
that would be well
Can
received.
we have an idea beforehand what
Yeah,
you
you have to
plan
give
to
us,
talk about?
right, you have to give us your speech first, right?
RSA 91? No.
Not that one.
Yeah, we can add, we'll
Okay.
add it to the
Yeah,
agenda.
I would definitely come up with something. It would be very short and sweet, so.
Future meetings, we have a joint board meeting next Monday at the SAU. After that, we have our regular scheduled meeting on June 2nd. Oh, is June 2nd when Barrett's coming, or is that June 16th?
16th,
16th?
I think it's the 16th.
June 16th is correct.
We were supposed to do one June 2nd.
And that's it until the joint board meeting in June. Closing public comment or
I think we lost
board
him.
public comment? Board member comment?
Oh, no, well, offline, I can get offline. Anybody go to the CBNA meeting?
Him and I
Because
were
I was
there.
Yeah, I
away.
was there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I saw you in the back.
Yeah, I got there a little late. But yeah, it's mostly a technology update.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so at least the part I saw. Non-public session, can I get a motion to go into non-public?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
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 All right, we're in non-public area.
At Attorney Christina, meet with the board on June 2nd,
Okay. I thought
Is
it was
that
the
what it
19th.
It's already been
I
set
mean,
up.
page
so-
16.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know whether that's changed, but
It's already been set up, so I would have to look at the next agenda to find out.
I knew it was in the minutes, so I went look and found it.
We sent out an email to verify for us.
Yep.
Thanks. A motion to approve the nomination list for support staff, please.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
One, Tim?
Motion to adjourn? Second.
Moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.